RVE is located at Bawaleshi near Valley View University on the Adenta to Dodowa Highway, Accra, Ghana. RVE is a gated community with 24-hour security. 300 houses will be constructed at RVE, comprising of 3-bedroom, semi-detached and 3-bedroom detached houses. The plot sizes at RVE are generous. Mortgages and flexible payment options available to qualified applicants. Rush now and own a house in Ghana. For more information, contact Pastor Joe Kissinger Anochi on 0790-479-3019. You can also contact Reverend Francis Nunu on 0744-049-4271 and also on 0744-8054-930. You can also email him at fs.nunu@gmail.com. You can also visit us at www.royalvalleyestates.gh.com. RVE, a place you can call home.
The Prasad's Automotive provides a
when they go away, good men come back. Today, we live in such a country which, if God were to judge us correctly, ought not to exist on the face of the earth. It ought to have received the treatment of Sodom and Gomorrah. But the only beauty in Kenya is that God has found 50 people. That is the only reason why God still preserved this country. But his patience is running out. Our cup of iniquity is getting filled by the day, and we do not know it. How is it getting filled by the day? On a daily basis, we are becoming a country where greed is celebrated. We give men and women opportunity to serve, and they steal from us. We give men and women the opportunity to preside over our health services. They acquire expired drugs, and women die, and children die. We are accusing Adolf Hitler of Holocaust. That is Holocaust of another kind. We are giving men and women the opportunity to preside over our transport department. They take the money, compromise the quality of our roads, and men and women die on those roads. And then we say that that is not genocide. It is genocide. And those men claim to be Christians. We give men and women the opportunity to preside over our counties. And our nurses are on strike for 1 month. And our doctors are on strike for 1 month. And not the president, not the opposition leader, not any member of parliament talks about it. And we celebrate them because of our ethnicity. You, the Kikuyu, say, Modo wa Nyuba. You, the Luo, say, Oduadu. And you, the Kamba, say, Osa Vinyamokamba. How can a country run that way? How can a country run that way? And we claim to be Christians, and we are so corrupt. We are destroying the next generation. And that is why James, in the book that was read at chapter 5, verses 1 to 8, tells and warns them that you oppressors, The gold and silver that you have acquired shall corrode. All these things that you have acquired that make you feel important, it is nothing. The great Alexander the Great, who had conquered half the known world before the birth of Christ, at his deathbed, instructed the doctors to prepare a coffin with his hands outstretched, that it may be known to the world that you came with nothing and you go with nothing. And he asked that the pallbearers be his doctors to tell the world that when death cometh, even the doctors cannot stop it. Yet in our vanity, we believe that when we acquire things, then we are immunizing ourselves from something. The last time I checked, greed is like drinking salty water. The more you drink, the more you want. But your thirst will never be sated. We have individuals in our communities, including ourselves, who engage in graft and corruption either wittingly or unwittingly. But most of it is wittingly. And we celebrate these individuals. In Kenya today, when I look at the men and women in the opposition, when I look at men and women in government, and I remember that not so long ago I had the advantage of working in an organization that investigated them. I'm bound by the oath of secrecy, but I can generally say, I look at them and say, God save Kenya. God save Kenya. These are the individuals who will save Kenya. These are the individuals, the pharaohs who have acquired the garbs of Moses, cheating us that they are Moses and they are pharaohs in disguise. God save Kenya. The tragedy is that the Kenyans either do not know or do not care. But I suspect that they know, and they have simply chosen to do what was described by the prophet Isaiah. They have eyes, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear. They have a form of Christianity, and Christianity has only become a fig leaf with which we hide our moral nakedness. We must interrogate our Christianity, because if it were true that being Christians immunize us from greed, then this country would be one of the countries with the least corruption in the world. It cannot be right that we are 80% Christian, we claim, and we are one of the most corrupt nations in Africa and on earth. This corruption that is alive and well in us. It is alive and well in us because we think that corruption and the things that we have acquired illegally are going to save us. But when you read the book of Luke, that conversation between Christ himself and that rich man, the young rich man comes forth and said, good teacher, what do I do to go to heaven? Follow the commandment, Christ says in his divine soft voice. And he says, I've followed all those commandments from my boyhood. But then Christ said, but there is one that you have not done. Go out and sell your things. Once you have sold them, distribute them to the poor. Then you shall, having unburdened yourself, go to heaven. And the young man goes out, possibly shaking his head and saying, now I cannot go beyond that point. And Christ possibly pointing at him and telling his disciples, I tell you, how difficult shall it be for a rich man to go into the kingdom of God? It would be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the camel, of the needle, than for a rich man to get into heaven. Christ is not condemning wealth. Christ is simply condemning the worship of wealth. Because the same Bible says that you should have enough for your children's children up to the 4th generation, but by the sweat of your brow. By the sweat of your brow. Not by taking things that belong to others. What we are condemning and what Christ is condemning is that we should not use our position to acquire things that don't belong to us. And I'm submitting to us that one of the reasons why Africa and Kenya will never realize their potential is that our appetite for that which is evil has been sharpened. Waswahili wanasema kinolewacho hupata. Our appetites are so sharpened that our conscience is seared. Our conscience is numb. We can no longer tell the difference between good and evil. And because we cannot tell the difference between good and evil, we engage in good and evil on a daily basis. And that is why Isaiah says, "Woe unto you who call light day and day light." And corruption is to be found in very many places. Corruption is not only to be found in the political arena. Corruption is found even in churches today. You know, a friend of mine with whom we don't agree on many things, but we agreed on this one, once told me, the church has become so mechanical, so structured in form, that there is no space for Christ and God. And that I thought was very deep. We have structured our worship services in such a way that God is only mentioned occasionally, that God is only worshipped occasionally. And I normally sometimes ask myself, how was Christ worshiping? Christ was an itinerant preacher who engaged in dialogue on a daily basis. Christ would come and find a few people and engage them in a discourse on matters of the heaven. When he talks about the parables of the unleavened bread, when he talks about the parable of the sower, when he talks about the parables of the wheat and the tares, Christ is an itinerant preacher. He did not have a title. Today we are hankering up after titles. There is no shortage of apostles and bishops in this part of the world. Woe unto them on the day of judgment. They'll be told, "We know you not." So the question is, we who are seated here, we who are Kenyans, we who know what is good and right, are we the salt of the earth or we are the light of the earth? This is the question that we must ask. What is our contribution? I'm told at one time by a friend, whether this is a true story or is an apocryphal story, I do not know. But in some airport in the Middle East, that there was a signpost saying, "You can leave your goods here, there are no Christians." There is a sense in which that statement is made tongue-in-cheek, but it has a hidden meaning. I'm sure that even in this church, when you are making an altar call, the pastor finds it fitting to say, as you come for the altar call, you ladies, take care of your bags. Because even within our ranks, Satan is alive and well. Within our ranks, Satan is alive and well. Every corner we turn, Satan is alive and well. Remember that temptation is always there. Even Christ himself was tempted. So that what Christ is telling us to do, he also went through. He had the agony. I keep on saying, before Golgotha, there was the agony at Gethsemane. There is no Golgotha without Gethsemane. And there is no resurrection without Gethsemane and Golgotha. So there is no triumph without temptation. It is your ability to resist temptation that defines who you are in these matters of corruption. And I know many thieves in this country. There is no shortage of thieves in Kenya. There is no shortage of thieves in parliament. They are there, and they are also good men there, but few. Recently, on national television, a member of parliament from a place called Sirisia I do not know his name, that member of parliament. But he was asked about corruption, and he said on national television that we normally receive bribes between 10,000, 100,000 and 50,000. All of us, he said on national television. And he was asked a direct question, do you yourself receive bribes? He says, I do. And even right now, he said, there is a matter in which I'm involved, in which fellow members of parliament have asked for 56 million. And he asked the interviewer, who can refuse money except God? I'm telling him that we can refuse money, and we have. There are good men in this country. I subsequently sent an SMS to the ESCC telling, arrest this individual. I'm still waiting for the answer. Because I believe such a one as that ought not to occupy the position of leadership, but I fear that such a one as that will be re-elected again. And when you elect such men and women to come to parliament, we can pray and fast all we want. But the last time I checked, if you elect Lucifer and his angels, there is only one thing that is going to happen, something satanic. And I'm submitting to us that indeed, as we are looking at the country today, and you watch these individuals in the 47 odd counties, these men and women, the bulk of them, are making promises to us. They are telling us they'll build bridges where there are no rivers. They'll build bridges. They are now telling us that they shall cause manna to fall from heaven. They are telling us that they shall make ice out of water and water out of ice. And they shall make fire out of ice, they are telling us. They are telling us that upon their election our lives will change dramatically in the same way that Paul of Tarsus became Paul. They are telling us that Kenya will become El Dorado, the land of gold, on the day of their election. They are telling us. They are telling us that their manifestos contain the secrets of alchemy that will allow us to convert bronze into gold. They are telling us. They are telling us that the skyscrapers of America in New York will be transplanted and be planted in Kitui. They are telling us. Or they are telling us that all the beautiful things that are happening in Europe will, in the twinkling of an eye, invade our country and will never go back again. They are telling us. And unfortunately, we believe them. We believe that they are latter-day alchemists. We believe that they are latter-day Simon the sorcerers. We believe that they are going to part the Red Sea of our lives. We believe that they shall erect pillars of fire to separate us from latter-day pharaohs. We believe that they shall knock stones and water shall come out of them. Who betide us? Those things will not happen. Because the last time I checked, an elephant only begets an elephant. How can it therefore be that a rabbit tells me that he'll beget an elephant? How can it be that hyenas are now telling me that they shall give forth lions? It cannot happen. It will not happen. And we believe it. We are co-authors of our own misfortune. We are co-authors of our own misfortune. The Bible is so clear that thou shalt reap what thou art sown. But what are we sowing now? I want each one of us, because corruption is not only restricted to bribes, no. Inspect your heart. In the little things that you do in your office. When your child does not have a pencil at home, do you take a pencil from the office to take it home? What do you do in private? Because we are in the business of doing that, and you don't think that that is corruption. You imagine to yourself if every worker were to take a pencil from your place of work. Those of us who love this country, which country is great in prospect, we must begin to say something. You know, whenever I've talked about corruption, I've always said that there are two ways of dealing with the corrupt in this country. To tell the king and the queens that they are naked, there are two ways of doing it. One of the ways is to be found in the synoptic gospels, and is what I call the way of John the Baptist. You go out into the agora and shout, "You Herodias, you have an illicit affair with the wife of thy brother Philip. Thou standst condemned." You say so in the agora. You will be arrested. Then there will be a dance at which Salome will dance so well. And Salome will be asked to name her prize. And Salome will name her prize as the head of John the Baptist. So if you choose to shout in the agora against corruption, you must be prepared to pay the ultimate price. How many of you are prepared? Because the last time I checked, if you've not found anything, Martin Luther King Jr. used to say, for which you are prepared to die, you have no business living. All of us must find something for which we are prepared to die. Then we are worthy of living. It is incumbent upon us as Christians and patriots to point out the evils that bedevil our country, not with the arrogance that will inflame the anger of the leadership, but with the firmness that will open their eyes. We must do that consistently without fear of consequence. But there is another way also of doing it depending on the circumstances, and that way I call the way of Nathan. Nathan visits David, and he tells David, "O king, in your kingdom there are two people, one very rich and the other one very poor with only 2 animals, and the one who is very rich takes the one from the poor one." And David says, if there is such a one is my kingdom, then such a one should be punished. And he says, "O king, it is you. You have taken Uriah's wife, and you have sent Uriah into the battlefield, and he is dead there." There is a sense in which we must determine what is the right approach. There are times when you use the method of John the Baptist, and there are times when you use the method of Nathan. Choose what is appropriate. Choose the instruments of first resort when first resort is at hand. Choose the instruments of last resort when the last resort is at hand. But never, ever stop doing the right thing. Those of you who are familiar with the World War II will remember this famous report, which I do not render in the manner in which it was rendered, but I render it in this manner without losing its substance. The famous statement attributed to Martin Niemöller. When they came for the Jews, I said nothing because I was not a Jew. When they came for the communists, I said nothing because I was not a communist. When they came from the trade unionists, I said nothing because I was not a trade unionist. When they came for me, there was nobody to say anything. The moral of Martin Niemöller's statement is, and when there is danger, shout against it. And we put it so very well in Kiswahili, mwenzako akinyolewa kichwa chako kitie maji. Because there is a sense in which you could be the next. Kumbukeni mtego wa panya uingia waliomo na wasiokuwemo. Na pia tukumbuke kilichompata ngwena na kiboko ni vivyo. So let us never imagine for one moment that we are safe. Throughout the ages, we have seen good men fight corruption. It is not a battle that started yesterday. We have told ourselves that it all started in heaven. And then we descended to the Garden of Eden, and we saw the exploits of Lucifer. Then we went to Sodom and Gomorrah, And we saw the contention between Abraham and God. And it did not stop there. We saw Moses grappling with Jannes, Jambres, and Dathan. And it did not stop there. Our own Christ is tempted, being told, if you only agree to worship me, the entire world will be yours. And Christ says, no, the only one to be worshipped. And it did not stop there. Even our own Christ was betrayed on the basis of 30 pieces of silver. But there are good men throughout the ages who have demonstrated by word and deed that when the chips are down, they are prepared to pay the ultimate price. That is how I understood the story recorded in the book of Daniel, the story of 4 young men, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, known to us much more famously as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When they were performing in the household of Nebuchadnezzar, they were given different names. They were told to worship an idol made 6 cubits wide, 6 cubits long. And they were told, you've got to worship it, and they refused. And a fire was lit 7 times over. And the Bible records that those who threw them into the fire were consumed immediately. But when they went in there, they said, the God that we worship will rescue us. But even if he does not, we shall not bow unto you. And within a few minutes, we are told that there was a 4th man in the fire. And Nebuchadnezzar said, but I threw in 3 men, but I now see 4, and the 4th one is like a son of the gods. We must always create an environment where the 4th man comes like a son of the gods. And that we can only do by resisting that which is wrong at all critical times. But like Luther King used to say, before the victory is won, men who are righteous and women who are righteous will be called all manner of names. But do not be deterred. Is it not Winston Churchill who said, you can never realize your goal if you turn to throw a stone at every dog that barks? Let the dogs bark, but you move forward ever, backward never. We are being told that there is something happening in Sodom and Gomorrah, but the divine injunction to the wife of Lot is that you shall not look back, because if you look back, you shall become a salt of stone. The choice is ours. The choice is as clear as it was in the day of Joshua. When it is recorded in the book of Joshua, chapter 24, it says, when you were across the river, your grandfathers worshipped idols, Terah and Nahor. And when you came into the land of the Amorites, you also found their gods. Choose you now, whether you shall worship the God of your fathers across the river, or the God of the Amorites in whose lands you live. As for me and my house, I shall worship the Lord. That question is an eternal question. We must make a choice. The choices are not easy, but I know men and women who have made those choices. Stephen, the first Christian to be martyred, made such a choice. The question is, you who are here today, what choices are you making today? Are you making the difficult choice of doing that which is right and good because it is just good to do that which is right and good? Are you enticed by the latter-day things that we see on a daily basis? Because I know that I have many friends who have helicopters. But the beauty of it, that when the helicopter flies, it must stop, comes down. I know many friends who have cars such as Lamborghini and Porsche and Mercedes-Benz. But the last time I checked, the Mercedes-Benz stops and he gets out of it and gets into his house of gold and goes into his bed of gold. But even in the bed of gold, there is no sleep. He has to induce sleep by using tablets, and even then sleep refuses to come. I know many friends who can afford all the good food in the world, caviar and all the good meat, but their appetite since disappeared. They've got to eat things to induce appetite, and even when they induce it, it does not come. But I know other friends who are not so materially endowed, or they don't need soup to sharpen their appetite. No. They were born ready. You bring forth the food and they consume it. They don't need it. I know poor friends who do not have beds of gold, but even when they sleep on the floor, they sleep soundly for 8 hours. And they don't have nightmares, they have sweet dreams which they have forgotten in the morning. I know friends who have nothing, they have no television, they only play drafts, and they enjoy it so thoroughly. They don't take out an insurance, no they don't. God is their insurance. And there is a way in which the God that we worship has a way of turning all these things in a positive way. And that is why I look forward to the day when we shall have in leadership men and women who love this country. I remember an old man with whom I had the privilege of working for a short time, former president of Tanzania, Julius Kambarage Nyerere. On the day that he left office, after 24 years in office, it is reported he had only 8,000 equivalent of United States dollars in his account. That is just about the amount that our MCA uses over a weekend. Mwalimu Nyerere, after 24 years, that is all he had. With a single house in Dar es Salaam and another one in Butiama, our MCAs and our governors within 4 years have 80 and 40 houses. And if you look at them, they have expanded so exponentially that even suits can no longer fit some of them. If you look at them, they are even running away. Has it ever occurred to you that our leaders are running away from something? They are running away from themselves. When they go to the barber shop, the first thing they ask for, a man, dye my hair that it may not be white. If God divinely said that when you grow old, your hair turns gray, why are you running away from your age? And when you have men and women who are running away from themselves, from their appearance, how truthful can they be to us? They are little things, but they have something to tell us. I'm submitting to us that time has come, that we must remember that this country will only realize their potential the day that good men and women have the opportunity to serve. The Bible that we read has numerous stories telling us of how the people enjoyed when good men and women were in authority, and how they suffered when evil men were in authority. This country that I live in, that I love, has great potential. But potential is only potential. We have sinned and fallen short of the glory of both God and man. We must repent and be of contrite hearts. And our repentance must be total and complete, because the God that we worship cannot be mocked. He knows in advance whether our hearts are contrite or not. So today, if we are liberating ourselves from the 7 deadly sins, let us ask, and Koigi Wawa Mwere, who is a friend of mine and who is a Kenyan who has been wavering recently between 2 opinions, has written a beautiful book called Towards Genocide in Kenya, The Curse of Negative Ethnicity. And Koigi says, and I agree with him, that the tragedy of Kenya is that our low-voltage ethnic warlords have hypnotized us. And they have made us believe that we only must follow them. And we have turned them into gods. We have deified our political leaders. We have treated them as God for so long that some of them now think that they are gods. Some of them now think that they are the Messiah. They suffer from the Messiah complex. They believe that God has sent them with a direct instruction to rescue us from latter-day pharaohs. No, they are not. And it is our duty to recognize and unmask them, and to know that they are only humans, and to remember that they are Dathan and latter-day Jannes and Jambreses. And when we do so, the God that we worship will liberate us from corruption of the morals. I know also that we have a cast of ethnicity. The God that I worship is a God of diversity. That God, in his divine wisdom, chooses to create human beings, some brown, some pink, who we call white. They are never white people. I've never seen a white person myself. But they are pink, but we say that they are white. Then there are some who we call yellow. They are not yellow. They are just brown of a different shade. Then there are some negroids. And within the negroid race, there is a wide spectrum. And when the God sits upstairs, he must say, behold, what beauty. And we, in our own way, because as it is in heaven, so it is on earth, when we are creating things, when we make a piano unto ourselves, we give the piano the black keys and the white keys. And when we hit at the white, we hit at the black. How melodious the music. The combination of black and white. Even I, black and white. How melodious. The God that we worship is a God of diversity. That God loves the Kikuyu of Kenya for their industry. That God loves them. That God loves the Luhya of Kenya for their energy. That God loves the Taita and the Wakamba for their humility. That God loves the Maasai for their agility. That God loves the Luo of Kenya for their quest for perfection. That God is the God of diversity. And then that God brings them into Kenya and tells them, produce a melodious music that sings Kenya. And we are refusing to do that. We are judging each other on negative things. We are asking that we be judged by the content of our character. How is it that when you leave your home, you leave your beautiful child whom you love in the care of a Luhya maid? How is it that when you leave your home, you have a Kamba maid who is looking after your child? How is it that you have a Kikuyu plumber, you have a Luo carpenter, and that you have, as man manning your gate, you have a Turkana, and then when you are electing the president, you are told it must be from your tribe? I can never understand that logic. What you want is a man or a woman who fears God, who is going to ensure that Kenya thrives. And I look forward to the day when on the 8th day of August, we have the opportunity to select. The choice is very restricted, unfortunately, but we are saddled with them. Let us look at men and women on the basis of their ability, not on the basis of their ethnic extraction. And let us go down in prayer, because even these leaders that we think are terrible, God is capable in the twinkling of an eye into converting them into good men and women. Our prayer is that it can happen. God is capable of converting them and making them say, like Matthew in the Bible, or like Zacchaeus in the Bible, from whom I took, I shall return sevenfold. Because there is no forgiveness without repentance. There is no peace without justice. But I'm submitting to us that we are capable. You know, as I conclude, I always look and read the Bible and ask myself, I wish I was in the 1st century. And I keep on asking myself, would I have been Peter? Would I have been Thomas? Would I have been Judas Iscariot? Who would I have been in that arrangement? I delude myself with the help of hindsight that I would not have been Judas. I think that I would have had elements of Thomas, because the thing that was happening was so monumental that it's only natural to question it. I would have asked Christ, I know you are Christ, but let me just confirm a little. And once I had confirmed, I would have followed Christ. Those are moments of doubt, and I ask myself, that eyes go down, and as I think about things like corruption, and I see to myself that Christ has been crucified, and Christ is in the grave, and everybody has gone their way. Peter has run away, and everybody has run away, and all of them are in a state of depression. They are saying, there was once a man who came, we thought he would liberate us, but they crucified him. This thing has ended. Then I remind myself that 2 women go to the grave in the morning, and lo and behold, there is nobody. And lo and behold, they are told, why do you look for the living amongst the dead? And I remember that there is a journey to Emmaus. And I remember that the 72 are gathered somewhere on the day of the Pentecost. And I see to myself that perhaps this is the day of the Pentecost. And that we are mincing over these things, and we have our own day of the Pentecost. That after you have gone through these series of teachings about the 7 deadly sins, and it has been exposed to you, and after you've been forewarned that in fact, if you don't change your ways, then you will have eternal damnation. And today we are talking about corruption, and we know corruption is a bad thing, and we know we have been victimized by it. I'm assuming to myself that the God of heaven is up there, and that He's looking at us in His own divine way. He'll not be dramatic today. No, there'll be no parting of the Red Sea in that dramatic way. No. There'll be no pillars of fire. No, not in that dramatic way. There'll be no manna from heaven in that dramatic way, because He gave us an instruction. Go ye and subdue the world. Go out and part your own Red Sea. Go out and make your own manna. So there is a day of the Pentecost today. And I want and I believe that after we leave here, you will all be speaking in tongues. And that you'll be speaking in tongues, and what you'll be saying, no more negative ethnicity. And if I am from the Kikuyu nation from today henceforth, I shall not refer to the Luos as Nyamoyaro, or why not? That if I am Luo, I'm not going to refer to the Kikuyu as Jarabuon. I'm not going to do that. And that if I am Kamba, I'm not going to say Mekamba Kevindio. I'm not going to say Osa Vinya Mokamba. But I'm going to say, like the Luhias, Vinduba Chenjanga. Things can change. Ladies and gentlemen, it can be done. We must do it. Let us live our Christianity. That does not mean that we will not sin. No. Winston Churchill said that success is moving from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And I'm submitting to us that in our quest to meet Christ and to do good, we will move from failure to failure. But we must never cease to be enthusiastic, because the more we try, the more we reach close to our target. It can be done. It must be done, because if it is not done, we are done. God bless you, because God is from everlasting to everlasting. The subject that I've been asked to speak about is one that continues to be topical in this country as it is in Africa. It is ironical that we in Kenya claim to be 80% Christians, and yet we are one of the most corrupt nations on earth. It is something that I've never understood, but there is a sense in which I understand why. Because many of us who claim to be Christians are not actually Christians in the manner that was contemplated by Christ. I remember several years ago as a university student, I watched a movie, and I watched it several times. The movie that dramatizes the life of Mahatma Gandhi and produced by Sir Richard Attenborough. And one of the things that the Mahatma says is that I love your Christ, but I do not love your Christians. So there is a sense in which we who claim to be Christians must interrogate our Christianity. A few days ago I said, and I repeat, that when the chips are down in Kenya and in Africa, the blood of ethnicity is always thicker than the blood of Christ. And that is why, therefore, in one of your sermons, you talked about ethnicity. Because in Kenya, men and women are judged not by the content of their character, but by their ethnic extraction. And the church is not spared in this regard. I've seen many churches, including my own Anglican church, where when there is an election for a bishop, the bishop must be drawn from that ethnic group. If it is a Luo diocese, the bishop must be from that diocese and must be a Luo. If it is a Kikuyu, it is the same thing. If it is a Kamba, it is the same thing. It is as if God only listens to people from your ethnic group. It is a tragedy of gigantic proportions. And I'm told that you had occasion to discuss the subject of ethnicity and tribalism. I'm also told that you had occasion to talk about greed. And greed has become our national creed, if you may. Many men and women who have the privilege of serving our nation in various capacities only seek those offices because of the opportunity to steal. And that is what brings me to my subject today, the place of corruption. But let us look at corruption in context, because we are Christians. It is not a new thing. I was walking this morning and thinking about man and man's relationship with God. And what came to my mind is that the entire enterprise that we now call corruption reared its ugly head in the heavens before it came down to earth. I imagined to myself that when on that fateful day, when Lucifer enticed the third of the angels to fight against Michael and the hosts of the heaven, he must have corrupted them. He must have enticed them and told them, when we have mounted a successful coup d'etat against God, you will occupy positions of power and honor. And they obliged. But they were badly defeated and thrown down on earth. But they did not stop there. When we were then brought down to earth and God in his divine majesty created Adam and Eve, Lucifer did not stop there. He waited one day when all instructions and injunctions had been given to man, and the injunctions were as clear as crystal. Of the trees in the garden you shall eat all of them, but of the tree of life and death in the center of the garden thou shalt not eat. But Satan in his warped wisdom came forth, and the Bible records told Eve, what His Majesty told you is not true. And that if you eat that fruit, your life will never be the same again. And indeed, the fruit was eaten, and our life has never been the same again. So that corruption did not start yesterday. Corruption has a long history. And when I left the heavens and I left the Garden of Eden, I once again met a man called Abraham. He was then Abraham, being asked by God to leave Ur of the Chaldeans, to leave the worship of idols. And his name is changed to Abraham, and he goes forth with his brother's son Lut, and they go yonder into the wilderness. And before it is too long, conflict arises. And before it is too long, there is sin in the world. And before it is too long, Sodom and Gomorrah have been enticed into sin. And before it is too long, God decides and determines to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And before it is too long, Abraham chooses to seek God to spare Sodom and Gomorrah. And the conversation between Abraham and God is one that I remember very vividly. He says, God, it is not in my place to contend with you. But if there were 50 good men, would you still destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? And the Lord God tells him, I will not if there are 50 good men. And he says, Father, that now that I've contended with you, if there are 5 less than 50, will you still destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? And the Lord God says, no. And he proceeds and says, what about if there were 20? And he says, if there are 20, I will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And he says, but what about if there are 10? And he says, I will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. But there were no 10 good men and women. And the history is told of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah because of sin and corruption. But it did not stop there. Once the Israelites had been given the opportunity to serve, they sinned against God, and for 400 years they were in captivity until God picked Moses. Many people did not know that Moses was a pagan, a worshiper of idols in the house of the pharaohs, and that Moses only meets God when he's called from the house of his father-in-law Jethro, and he goes to the mountain of the Lord. That is when Lord introduces himself to him, says, I am that I am. And Moses goes yonder to the Pharaoh with clear instruction, tell the Pharaoh, let my people go. And the Pharaoh, after 10 trials and tribulations, let the people go. But as if their memories were short and selective, within a short time they want to go to the flesh pots of Egypt. And if you read the Bible very carefully, there are 3 men who at all times tried to ensure that Moses did not get to the promised land. You will meet a man called Dathan. You will meet a man called Jannes and Jambres. Their agenda in life was to ensure that they did not get to the promised land. Once again, the Israelites sinned against God. And those of you who have watched the dramatization of the 10 Commandments, there are many dramatizations, but the one that I love is the 1956 dramatization by Cecil B. DeMille with Charlton Heston as Moses. And I remember in that dramatization, when the Israelites have crossed the Red Sea, when the Israelites are sitting at the foot of the mountain, and Moses goes yonder into the mountain, and he is there for 40 days and 40 nights, and there is disquiet downstairs. The people of Israel tell Aaron and Miriam that it is not possible that Moses is alive. And Dathan tells them that I'll take you back to the Pharaoh. And of course they make unto themselves a god of gold. And after 40 days, then the dramatization, Moses has received the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments. And he's coming forth. And the Bible says that when he came forth, he had Kiran emanating from his head. Kiran in Hebrew means horns. But there were two horns of light. And he came forth. And in the dramatization, Joshua meets him midway. And Joshua poses to him, I hear noise. Is there danger? But Moses tells him, no. There is joy and revelry. The people have rebelled against God. And he comes down in the dramatization, and he holds the two tablets aloft, and he says, those who are with the Lord, come unto me. And Dathan says in the dramatizations, you have made unto yourself laws, that you may become a prince over us. And Moses says, those who shall not live by the law shall die by the law. There is no freedom outside of the law. Freedom must be within the law. So that throughout the generations from Abraham through to Moses, through to all those people in Israel, we see the constant battle between good and evil. And this battle is one of the corruption of the morals, man's greed for acquisition of material. And that is how, when it was read to us, the book of the prophet Isaiah, at chapter 5, verses 1 through to 8, the prophet Isaiah is very clear in saying, woe unto them who say that there is light when there is darkness, and vice versa. Who unto them who say that there is bitterness when there is sweetness, and who unto them who says that there is light when there is darkness, and vice versa. And who unto them who take bribes that they may do injustice. Isaiah is writing at a time when the Israelites have been consumed by sin and material things. We live in such times in this country. We live in such times in this continent. We live in such times in this world. In fact, I dare say that these were the days that Christ spoke about, that in the end, there will be such things. Men will be lovers of themselves. There'll be a form of Christianity. It is the form of Christianity which, if you permit me, makes you feel good without making you good. There is such a form of Christianity that is alive today. A Christianity that has converted the house of God into a casino, where you are promised that upon sowing seeds you shall reap. It is a sports pesa Christianity. That you plant some seed and after a few days you win the lottery. That is not the Christianity that Christ talked about. But that is the Christianity that is alive and well in this part of the world. I now so very clearly understand Christ when he says that at the end they shall come to me and say, but I healed in your name, and he shall tell them, I know you not. There is a sense in which, therefore, when we talk about Christianity and corruption in this country and in many parts of the world, we must ask ourselves, what is the impact of corruption in our daily lives? It is Kofi Annan who, writing about corruption, said that corruption, unlike prostitution, which only destroys the morals of a single individual, is much more pernicious and much more cancerous because it destroys a whole nation. Today, many African countries, including our own, continue to punch below their weight because corruption is alive and well. I've gone to many churches, and right now, if you look at the political scene in Kenya, there is no shortage of individuals attending churches on Fridays, on Sunday, And tomorrow, when it is the Muslim day, even the Christian leaders will now wear kanzus and pretend to be Muslims. The God that I worship cannot be mocked. And on a daily basis, we are mocking God. And we pay for it. So that what we now see are people whose morals have been compromised. Are people who claim that they believe in God, but they do the opposite of what God commands. There is a sense in which corruption of our morals, because that is where it begins. And we as a people and we as a country have erected unto ourselves a God called money. And I know that we must make a decision. I had the privilege of speaking about this subject not so long ago. And I reminded my audience that throughout the world there has always been a requirement for us to make choices. And I reminded my audience that if they read the book of 1 Kings, at chapter 18, they see the confrontation between Elijah and the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who ate at Jezebel's table. And he tells Israel, do not waver between two opinions. If Baal is God, worship Baal. And if God is God, worship God. I'm submitting to us that as a nation we waver between two opinions. During the day and on Sundays and Saturdays, we are also very pious. But at night, we are dealings with the devil himself. It's not lost on me that now, when you travel throughout Nairobi, there is no shortage of posters of witch doctors who are claiming to cure everything, including to resurrect the dead. And they have clans who are Christians by the day and worshippers of the devil by night. You know, sometimes I listen to clergymen and they claim that all power comes from God. That is a heresy. It is not true. All power does not come from God. That is selective reading of the Bible. Power which is evil may be permitted by God, but it does not come from him. Saul did not come from God. It was a king chosen by the Israelites. The choice of God was David. Idi Amin did not come from God. Adolf Hitler did not come from God. Jean Bedel Bokassa did not come from God. But because of our iniquity, God allows evil leaders because we are evil ourselves. Right now, in this country, we are going through an election or preparing for an election. 349 seats being competed for in the Senate, in the National Assembly. And these men and women are engaged in an exercise which is cutthroat. 3/4 of these men and women are not interested in serving Kenya, no. They are interested in serving themselves. In Kenya, like many African countries, the opportunity to occupy public office is the shortest avenue to wealth. What they are therefore doing on the 8th day of August is to buy a lottery ticket. When they acquire a lottery ticket, the winners will be known on the 9th. And once the winners are known, this is the prize that they shall win. If you are a member of parliament, immediately upon becoming a member of parliament, you get a free car. Immediately upon becoming a member of parliament, you get a mortgage of 15 million shillings. Immediately you get $1 million bob. Immediately you preside over CDF. Immediately you have foreign visit. Immediately you become a millionaire. Immediately we call you honorable when you are horrible. Immediately you are a person who has won a lottery. But you who are here with me, we are complicit. Right now, as they traverse the nation, they are bribing all of us, including in churches. They are giving us money which is ill-gotten. And we who want to take that money are making the claim that we are capable of cleansing that money, even if it was ill-gotten. We are the co-authors of our misfortune, and we have allowed corruption to eat at our very being. We have men and women who occupy positions of leadership who ought not to occupy such position. The last time I read the book of Romans, and go and read it at chapter 12, verse 2, it says, do not conform to this world, transform the world. But we are conforming to this world. We have conformed to this world, and that is why we cannot realize our potential. When you read the book of the Proverbs of Solomon, he says in Proverbs 28:28, that when evil people take power, good men disappear, they go underground. But when they go away, good men come back. Today, we live in such a country. A country which, if God were to judge us correctly, ought not to exist on the face of the earth. It ought to have received the treatment of Sodom and Gomorrah. But the only beauty in Kenya is that God has found 50 people. That is the only reason why God still preserved this country. But his patience is running out. Our cup of iniquity is getting filled by the day, and we do not know it. How is it getting filled by the day? On a daily basis, we are becoming a country where greed is celebrated. We give men and women opportunity to serve, and they steal from us. We give men and women the opportunity to preside over our health services. They acquire expired drugs, and women die, and children die. We are accusing Adolf Hitler of Holocaust. That is Holocaust of another kind. We are giving men and women the opportunity to preside over our transport department. They take the money, compromise the quality of our roads, and men and women die on those roads. And then we say that that is not genocide. It is genocide. And those men claim to be Christians. We give men and women the opportunity to preside over our counties. And our nurses are on strike for 1 month. And our doctors are on strike for 1 month. And not the president, not the opposition leader, not any member of parliament talks about it. And we celebrate them because of our ethnicity. You, the Kikuyu, say, Modo wa Nyuba. You, the Luo, say, Oduadu. And you, the Kamba, say, Osa Vinyamo Kamba. How can a country run that way? How can a country run that way? And we claim to be Christians, and we are so corrupt. We are destroying the next generation. And that is why James, in the book that was read at chapter 5, verses 1 to 8, tells and warns them that you oppressors, the gold and silver that you have acquired shall corrode. All these things that you have acquired that make you feel important, it is nothing. The great Alexander the Great, who had conquered half the north,
A big hand for our honorable guest, Professor Lumumba. My brother, I've always been telling you that you have a lot of disciples in Tanzania. Now you see for yourself how packed Nkrumah Hall is. And I want to assure you, if it weren't for the university examinations that are going on at the moment, maybe we'll be struggling for space in this hall. And this is to welcome you very warmly to the University of Dar es Salaam. Professor Lumumba does not need introduction because he's been here before and we all know him in different ways. We've been following him in all the different speeches that he's been giving all over Africa. But let me introduce him a little bit so that we get to know who Professor Lumumba is. Professor Lumumba is the Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya School of Law. He's a Professor of Public Law and founding Dean of the Kabarak University School of Law. He has lectured law at the University of Nairobi, the United States International University of Africa, Widener University in USA, and Nairobi Summer School. He's an advocate of the High Courts of Kenya and Tanzania. He holds Bachelor of Laws and Master of Laws in degrees from the University of Nairobi and LLD from the University of Ghent, Belgium. He is also a holder of the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa, from the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. He's a certified public secretary, CPS-K, and a member of the Kenya Institute of Management. He has been trained on human rights at the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, University of London in England, humanitarian law at the Raoul Wallenberg Institute of the University of Lund in Sweden, and on international humanitarian law in Geneva, Switzerland. He is a renowned legal practitioner. He has written several books, including Criminal Procedure in Kenya, An Outline of Judicial Review in Kenya, Kenya's Long Search for a Constitution, The Postponed Promise and Judicial Review and Administrative Law. He has published numerous articles in refereed journals and several book chapters. He has co-authored The Constitution of Kenya 2010, an introductory commentary with Dr. Louis Franceschi. He has also co-authored several books on ethics. His non-legal books include Swearing by Kenya, A Call for Political Hygiene in Kenya Politics, and From Raw Deal to Real Deal. He has also co-authored 27 other books on integrity as school series. He has recently ventured into fiction with his book, Stolen Moments. He is a former secretary of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission and former director of the defunct Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. He is the founding trustee of the African Institute for Leaders and Leadership and founding chairman of the Association of the Citizens Against Corruption. He has been named and recognized by the International Commission of Justice, Kenya, and the Law Society of Kenya for his exemplary contribution to the legal profession. He was recognized by the Kenya-USA Association for the Martin Luther King Jr. Leadership Award in 1996 and was the recipient of the 2008 Martin Luther King Africa Salute to Greatness Award by the Martin Luther King Jr. Africa Foundation. He has also been included in the Mackey's Who's Who in the World and is the Distinguished Mwalimu Nyerere Lecturer for 2014. He was the 11th Kwame Nkrumah Lecturer at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just some of Professor Lumumba's achievements. And as you are all aware, Professor Lumumba has a deep, deep passion for discussing the fate and direction of our continent. It is indeed our great privilege and honor to once again have him speak here today at Nkrumah Hall. My brother, I, with great honor and pleasure, present you to the University of Dar es Salaam.
Thank you very much. Let me start by recognizing the Vice Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam. Permit me also to recognize the Deputy Vice Chancellor and to recognize Professor Penina Mlama. And in the audience, permit me to recognize Mzee Warioba, my Lord, I recognize you. I also take this opportunity to recognize the other academics who are present here, the students who are here, and members of the press. I'm so very happy to be invited once again to be present with you to celebrate and commemorate the life and times of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. I first came to Tanzania as a student on the 9th day of December 1984, when I was a student leader at the University of Nairobi, and the then President of Kenya invited me, among other students, to accompany him. And that is when I met Mwalimu Nyerere. I then, 10 years later, in 1994, visited at the invitation of Professor Haru Bothman on the occasion of 40 years of celebration of leadership in Africa. And that is when I formally was introduced to Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere and his foundation. It therefore gladdens my heart that I'm in the country of a man whom I admire and in a hall named after, and in a hall that is named after another great African, the Osagyefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The subject that has preoccupied us in the last few days is one that is as topical as it is relevant. The rise or fall of Africa on account of the African politician. And in order to do justice to that subject, and to remain faithful to my chosen subject, which is a call for hygiene in African politics, there is a sense in which one must take a historical journey, if only to appreciate the factors that animated Africans to seek to regain their independence from the colonial masters. Historians will remind us that we were first enslaved, that Africans were taken, and this we seldom say. The first civilization to take Africans out of this continent were the Arabs. And they took Africans from the eastern coast. And it's sad that in that part of the world, there are not many Africans who remained, because it was in the business of the Arab enslaver to castrate Africans. We never say that, but we must say it because it is historically significant. Then the Europeans came, the Portuguese came, the Spaniards came, the Germans came, the French came, the Belgians came. Africa became the hunting ground for the European colonizers, and we were the spot. We built, our ancestors built the United States of America, Our ancestors built Europe, and when slavery had lost its shine and sheen, the Europeans abolished it, but they replaced it with yet another pernicious enterprise, the colonization of Africa. The Europeans sat in Berlin, in Germany, in 1884, and they looked at the map of Africa and parceled it out. The British had their share, the Germans had their share, and Tanzania or Tanganyika was their share, as was Rwanda and Burundi. The Spaniards were Johnny-come-latelys in the arena, and they got little Equatorial Guinea and Southwest Africa. The French were here, the Portuguese were here, and we were colonized. This time round, they did not take us away. They came here, and they controlled us, and they told us, not in so many words, that we were children of a lesser God. And we were treated as if we were children of a lesser God. In fact, they told us that on the day of creation, we were merely hewers of wood and drawers of water. And if anybody were to doubt it in 1948, it was more blatant when Hendrik Verwoerd instituted the apartheid regime in South Africa. But yet there is a sense in which the God that we worship never sleeps. The colonial enterprise ran its course, and the European tribes, the Europeans never called themselves tribes, they called them nations, were engaged in a war. First in 1918, the European tribes fought. And they had something called the League of Nations, which died. Then they fought again in 1945. And what is unique about the European nations is that when they are engaged in tribal wars, they call them world wars. So there was another war between 1945, 1939 and 1945, and after that, a new kid on the block, the United States of America, took the lead in saying that colonialism was something that was undesirable. But at that time, Africans were never quiet. Those who had been taken out had already started agitating. Many of us here will remember Marcus Garvey, of whom Bob Marley says, Garvey was a buffalo soldier in the heart of America. And many of us will remember W.E.B. Du Bois. Many of us will remember that they started agitating that Africans must regain their dignity and their independence. And indeed, in 1847, in Liberia, a small group of Africans were brought back in Monrovia, and Liberia became the first independent black nation in the continent of Africa. So soon thereafter in Sierra Leone, they also created yet another colony. But Africa was colonized, except Ethiopia, which they tried to take in 1938 and exiled Professor Dr. Haile Selassie, and unfortunately they were defeated, as you remember, in the Battle of Adwa. Africa can defeat European tribes. This history is necessary that we are able to appreciate the freedom that we gained. So that Garvey came, W.E.B. Du Bois came, but there was another crop after the 1940s who had the advantage of European education. And there were people in Europe also who are beginning to recognize that indeed equality was necessary. And this was not anything new. In 1776 in the United States of America, the American state sitting in Philadelphia in the United States of America declared unto themselves that all men are born equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A few years later in France, after the revolution, they also recognized that we were to be equal, so that the colonized nations which had now taken Africans thought that they were safe. They had taken Leopold Sédar Senghor from Senegal to Paris, and they thought that they were creating a little Frenchman. Little did they know that they were creating somebody who would want to overthrow them. They took Félix Houphouët-Boigny from Côte d'Ivoire, and they thought that they were creating somebody who would be subservient to them. They took Ahmed Sékou Touré and Modibo Keïta, and they thought they were safe. Little did they know that they were creating the future leaders and agitators against French colonization. And it did not stop there. The Portuguese also took Agostinho Neto and Amilcar Cabral and Eduardo Mondlane to Lisbon. Little did they know that those individuals would be the catalyst that would be necessary in the process of decolonization. The British also had their fair share. They took others. They took Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere, Hastings Kamuzu Banda, Kenneth David Kaunda, and many others to the United Kingdom, Jomo Kenyatta. Little did they know that those would be the individuals who sometimes later, and in Ghana, of course, they took the Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, and in Nigeria, they took Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sultan of Sokoto. There is a sense, therefore, in which these individuals started recognizing that having been enslaved, having been colonized, we now had to liberate ourselves. And the agitation started. And Kwame Nkrumah and his Ghana acquired independence in 1957. And I still can hear Kwame Nkrumah through the vicissitudes of time saying in Accra, Ghana, that Ghana is free and will never be colonized again. But the freedom of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free. I can hear Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere saying that he is prepared to delay the independence of Tanganyika so that Tanganyika, Kenya, Uganda would become independent at one time. Mwalimu could see the future with the exactitude of a Jewish prophet. Jomo Kenyatta and Obote could not. And therefore, we gained independence as separate states, and the story will be told shortly. So what do we see? The agitation, the demand by the people that we must be decolonized. And why is it that we were asking that we must be decolonized? Why is it that we were demanding that we must regain our independence? Because throughout the ages, it was always the divine plan that men must be masters of their destiny. And when we gained our independence, the leaders of the day were eloquent as they were clear that the reason why we were asking to be independent is because we wanted to take charge of our affairs. We wanted to be the governors. We wanted to have our young men and women acquire education. We wanted to control the production of our food through agriculture. We wanted to build our infrastructure. We wanted to improve the quality of the lives of our people by improving their health. We wanted to eliminate poverty. We were clear on what we wanted, and this message was as clear in West Africa as it was clear in East Africa, as it was clear in Central Africa, as it was clear in Northern Africa, so that if you listen to Kwame Nkrumah, it's as if you'd listen to Agostino Neto, and if you listen to Neto, it's as if you'd listen to Samora Moses Machel, and if you listen to Ahmed Ben Bella in the Maghreb, it's as if you'd listen to Patrice Emery Lumumba. There is a sense in which there was unanimity that this was the only way, and we attained independence. And I remember so very vividly, in 1957, in Casablanca, Morocco, was it in 1960, when the then 8 independent African countries met on the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah, was clear that we must ensure that everybody else regains their independence, and that we must remember that the colonial master is not asleep, and that if we don't unite, he'll come under other guises through the neo-colonial project, but they listened to Kwame Nkrumah not. And even before they assembled in 1963, in the month of May in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, no sooner had countries started attaining independence than the neo-colonial project started taking root. And in 1960, the first coup d'etat and assassination took place in Togo when Sylvanus Olympio was eliminated. 1 year later, Patrice Emery Lumumba was eliminated. So that in 1963, in the month of May, when 32 heads of states and government assembled in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, there were several speeches, but 3 speeches stand out. Kwame Nkrumah's speech, Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere's speech, and Emperor Haile Selassie's speech. Haile Selassie was the host, and in his own inimitable style, he reminded the congregation who are present in Africa Hall in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that that was a momentous occasion, and that the long-term health of Africa not only required but demanded that Africa must pull in the same direction, Haile Selassie said. And Mwalimu took the baton from Haile Selassie and repeated the same words, celebrating the fact that we were independent and we had the opportunity of determining in our affairs. But the greatest of the speeches was that of the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah had a sense of urgency which everybody else did not have. He said, not in so many words, but in effect, that if we want to immunize ourselves from the diabolical machinations of the erstwhile colonial master, now turned neo-colonizer, we have to move here as one Africa, with the United States of Africa, with one army, with one currency, with one central bank, and with one nation. But they listened to him not. They had started getting used to the trappings of power. So what they came out with on that day in the month of May 1963 was a weak organization of African unity, the OAU, which many commentators were quick to describe in many ways and many times as the toothless bulldog. It was never a dog. It did not have teeth, but the effect of it is that it did not do very much. Some say it was a talking shop. Mzee Warioba, who was then active in political life and in other sectors, will attest to that. Yet later, we were to create another body, the African Union, and we'll have something to say about that. So we come out of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia in 1963, clear as to what we want to do. The African politician begins to emerge. We have them in different parts. But they begin to show characters that are totally inimical to our expectations. You of the Swahili say, maskini akipata matako huliambwata. Maskini walipata matako zililiambwata. They started getting used to the trappings of power. And we started having countries which we thought would liberate us. And I'm talking about the hygiene of the politics. It started disappearing. Many of these individuals now thought that they were demigods, suffering from what I call the Messiah complex, thinking that they had been brought to Africa to liberate her, and that they suffered from two major diseases. One of them is the martyr syndrome, and the other one is the Messiah complex. They think that their countries owed them. Africa started producing leaders that one cannot recognize. How many of you will forget Jean Bedel Bokassa of Central African Republic, that man who murdered little children in the streets because they did not buy a uniform from his wife? That's Jean Bedel Bokassa. How many of you will forget Mobutu Sese Seko Kumbendu wa Nzambanga, who changed his country's name and presided over a kleptocratic regime? The Democratic Republic of Congo is the richest resource country on earth. Conservatively, it is said that under her belly, she has minerals, which is equivalent to 34.1 trillion United States dollars. And yet today, it is one of the poorest nations on earth. It is the only nation on earth which on the day of the election has its president saying, we know we ought to have elections, but we have no money to hold elections. When you see a country which has as its official name the Democratic Republic of Congo, know that there is no democracy. In fact, I dare say that any country, two countries that I know insisting on having as a part of their official name the Democratic Republic of something are never democratic. The other one is Korea, the People's Democratic Republic of Korea. It's as if when you can't graduate to be a doctor, you go to the church and you ask to be baptized as Dr. Mwadime. But that is not the point. The point is that who can forget Mobutu Sese Seko? Who can forget Idi Amin of Uganda? Who can forget Mengistu Haile Mariam of Ethiopia? And one can go on because hygiene had started disappearing from African politics. Our agriculture was beginning to suffer. European musicians who had a little sense of guilt came to perform in Africa, Bob Geldof, to free the Ethiopians out of hunger. There was no hygiene in our politics. We could not run our education systems. Our young men and women were going to India because the budgets meant for education were consumed by individuals whom we had entrusted with the task of presiding over it. Our health sectors were beginning to collapse. And as I've said before, the political leadership did not have any faith in those institutions. Typically, the typical African politician, perhaps not in Tanzania today, if they were sick, they had a cold, they would not go to Muhimbili, they would go to London. If they were Kenyan, they would not go to Kenyatta Hospital, they would run to the United Kingdom. Tragedy, no hygiene in our politics because Africans had started engaging in theft. In fact, I used to say that African politicians were thieves. Then I went to Uganda and I was told that they are not thieves, they are looters. And when I went to Liberia last week, I was told they are not looters. I was told they are looters on an industrial scale. That is the logical metamorphosis of the African politician whose appetite for public wealth is completely insatiable. Hygiene was disappearing from African politics, and we could see the effect of the disappearance of hygiene in African politics. But there was always the erstwhile colonial master to assist. Coup d'etats started visiting Africa. Modibo Keita in Mali was consumed. Nnamdi Azikiwe in Nigeria was consumed. Diosagie for Kwame Nkrumah was consumed. Apollo Milton Obote was consumed. Amilcar Cabral in Guinea-Bissau was consumed. Patrice Emery Lumumba was consumed. Coups were so frequent in Africa that Afro-pessimists were now hard to say that coups were as frequent as breakfast. But even breakfast was not frequent on African tables. We could not feed ourselves because there was no hygiene in African politics. Your typical African politicians took the view that they had a divine mission to preside over their countries. They arrogated to themselves the monopoly of wisdom. If you listen to some of them, and I listen to the radio announcements announcing the activities of one leader of an African country, Habyarimana Juvenal, it would take 3 minutes to say the things that he had done.
Welcome to Royal Valley Estate, a gated community with over 300 housing units. The houses come in 3-bedroom detached, 3-bedroom semi-detached, 4-bedroom detached with a 2-bedroom outhouse.
Royal Valley Estate Limited was incorporated in 2008 to help in reducing the deficit in the national housing backlog and also to provide housing for people with a unique taste. Royal Valley Estate Limited is duly registered and is owned by reputable Ghanaians.
The estate comes complete with 24-hour security, estate management and sanitation services.
Royal Valley Estate Limited has got valid land title certificate, which means that there's no litigation on our properties. Royal Valley Estate Limited is master planned, which makes provision for church, recreational area, shopping center, and a clinic. Royal Valley Estate Limited has made generous provision for plot sizes. There's a 70 by 100 feet plot size for our 3-bedroom detached house and a 50 by 70 feet plot size for our 3-bedroom semi-detached houses.
Construction is currently underway with several houses completed. Royal Valley Estate is built with high-quality construction materials. This ensures our houses have high-quality finishing. Each house has ceramic floor tiles, panelette ceilings, aluminium sliding windows with burglar-proof. The bathrooms are tiled and have chrome plumbing. The kitchen is fitted with cabinets.
Our doors have the external metal security doors and internal panel doors. With all this, we've provided a 5-year warranty for our houses that we develop.
Water supply is guaranteed with supply from Ghana Water Company and a borehole as additional water source. Electricity is supplied by a dedicated transformer. All drains in the estate are covered and the roads tarred. We offer flexible payment options and arrange mortgages with leading mortgage providers in Ghana. The estate is located in Bawaleshi off the Accra-Dodowa Road.
You are making the right decision by choosing Royal Valley Estate Limited as the place to live in.
Say the things that he had done. He was the leading farmer. He was the leading singer. He was the leading intellectual. He was the leading husband. And he was the leading everything. We had monsterized our leaders, and they became immune from any kind of advice. Meanwhile, the African was suffering. The African woman who thought that upon attainment of political independence, she would now deliver in a decent hospital was still the victim of a village midwife. The African woman was suffering. The African woman who thought that they would now get water in a tap in their homes was still running 5 kilometers away to get water. Meanwhile, our monster leaders were laundering their clothes in France and in Paris. The African woman who thought that they would go to Kariakoo market here in Dar es Salaam or Owino market in Kampala, Uganda, and get all the goodies could not get them because meanwhile, the Minister for Agriculture had agreed that bad seed be supplied, and meanwhile, we were getting mangoes from Europe. The African woman who thought that they could have food on the table could not have food on the table. We had killed all our sugar industries that we may have sugar from Brazil and Mexico. And the African youth was no different. The African youth who thought that upon realization of independence, there would be occasion for them to get employment was now being humiliated at the embassies of the United States of America as he struggled to get the almighty green card. The young African who thought that liberation would bring something new was now struggling at the United Kingdom embassy, filling a document that is 50 pages long, being asked who their great-great-grandfathers were and what enterprise they were engaged in. And they could not stop there. They went to the Australian embassy and to the French embassy, and the treatment was the same. The African youth was being treated like a leper, like a pariah, like a subhuman being. And they were asking, for what purpose did we gain this thing called independence? And those who are not humiliated in Gambia, in Nigeria, in Niger, were crossing the Red Sea, swimming across the Mediterranean to go to Italy so that they may be enslaved anew. Meanwhile, the African leader was busy looting from their countries and buying mansions in Paris and in London and in Florida, and driving private jets and helicopters and being addressed as their excellencies and honorables instead of being addressed properly as horribles. Hygiene had disappeared in African politics. And what had started happening is that a new generation of African leaders who were dissatisfied started emerging. And one need only look at Africa in the 1980s when we begin to see the emergence of a new crop of leaders who are saying, this is not what we fought for. And I can remember so very vividly Ethiopia's Meles Zenawi in 1984 abandoning his medical studies and pursuing the Deg regime of Mengistu Haile Mariam. And he removed Haile Mariam. And there is a sense in which some hygiene has been reintroduced in Ethiopia. And I can remember here, God works in strange ways. Idi Amin made the mortal mistake of assuming that Tanzania and Mwalimu Julius Nyerere could be poked without consequence. He tried, and he died regretting it. And this became, indeed, many of you will remember that this University of Dar es Salaam became the finishing school of latter-day revolutionaries. John Garang di Mabior was here. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was here. If they were not students, they passed through here because this was the mecca of political revolutionaries. Eduardo Mondlane was here. Samora Machel passed through here, if only for a few hours. Nelson Holisa Mandela passed through here. Sam Nujoma came through here. This was the baptism ground. And the high priest was Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. It was he who, in a manner of speaking, said, "With this water I thee baptize, that you may go out there and change your country." And Yoweri Kaguta Museveni went out into Uganda, and there is a sense, whether you like it or not, in which some hygiene was introduced in that country. There is a sense in which when Samora Moises Machel left this ground, he went to Mozambique, and there was a sense in which some hygiene was introduced in that country. There is a sense in which John Garang di Mabior left here, and some hygiene was beginning to be introduced in South Sudan. Right now, the story is a little different, but one can see that there was this new crop of leaders who recognized that indeed we had to do something about it. But ladies and gentlemen, what had happened over the years? Let us ask ourselves the fate of Africa. Why I say that there is a need for political hygiene. Africa today has 54 odd countries. And allow me to take you through a tour of Africa, if the moderator will be gracious enough to give me latitude. When you start from the Cape in South Africa, there is a great country which has given birth to great men. 1912, the first political party to be founded in Africa, the African National Congress of Sir Albert Lutuli. That party has given birth to the Mandelas, to the Govan Mbekis, to the Reginald Oliver Tambo. There was great pain during the apartheid regime, but wisdom prevailed upon President de Klerk. And in 1994, we created what was called a rainbow nation. Mandela had his honeymoon. Then came Govan Mbeki, or Thabo Mbeki, the son of Govan Mbeki. Then came Jacob Zuma. I do not know where Jacob is taking South Africa. But from where I am, there is need for hygiene in South Africa, because that is a great country, and that is the anchor of Southern Africa. Nelson Mandela left a country that was called the Rainbow Nation. Today I'm beginning to hear them talk about the Zulu and the Xhosa and the Pedi. It is your own Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere who says, katika karne ya 21 mnasema tupande basi la makabila, hiyo ni ujinga na upumbavu. Then there is another country, because there is need for hygiene in African politics. And when one talks about hygiene, one wants to see improved agriculture. One wants to see improved infrastructure. One wants to see improved education. One wants to see that the quality of the life of our women and children is improved. And you go to Namibia, there is a sense in which there is some hygiene there. If only the land question could be solved, that would be a country that is worthy, is moving in the right direction. One can begin to see that. Then you move to Angola, that unfortunate land of Agostinho Neto, and you will remember Holden Roberto and Jonas Malheiro Savimbi. There is a sense in which that country was traumatized. I'm happy to note that President Dos Santos now says he's going to retire in 2018. My only concern is that he is sick now, and he is seeking treatment in Madrid, Spain. Why don't they have a good hospital in Luanda, Angola? After you've been a president for 20 years, you are going to another civilization to treat you. There is a sense in which there was lack of hygiene. Then you go to Botswana, that great country. In 1966, Botswana was a backwater country with nothing but courtesy of an individual who knew that hygiene depended and required that you improve the quality of people's lives. Sir Seretse Khama. And you know, when you have hygiene, even the politics becomes hygienic. And you realize that politics is not a life and death issue. That politics is a question of the competition of ideas. I've just read a Tanzanian newspaper here which I thought was very insightful. Siasa ni kupambanisha hoja sio vioja. And there is beauty in that. And Nyerere put it even better in much more eloquent Kiswahili than I can master. He said, kwanza tutambue ya kwamba ikulu ni mahali patakatifu. But I'm still talking about Botswana, Seretse Khama, Ketumile Masire, Festus Mohai, and Ian Khama. They now know that politics is not life and death. That is a country where there is hygiene. For those who are Afro-pessimists, who think that nothing is happening in Africa, something is happening. They are monsters, but they are also angels. But did they not exist like that even in the heavens? Lucifer alongside Michael and Gabriel? It would appear that as it is in heaven, so it is on earth. And if you go to Mozambique, you can also begin to see that there is a problem there, but there is an attempt at hygiene. You go to Zambia, that is another country, Kenneth David Kaunda. On the day that he left office, Kenneth David Kaunda had only $8,000 in his account. If you ask your typical African Tanzanian councillor today, before Magufuli came in, that was pocket change. After 24 years in power, $8,000 only. Those are people who love their country and sacrifice. There is a need for hygiene in Zambia. It is the only country in the world that I know where when an opposition leader blocks a motorcade, it does not become the offense of obstruction, it becomes the offense of treason. Unprecedented in the world. Hygiene is necessary in that country. And I look forward to hygiene being introduced. Then one comes to Tanzania. You know, Tanzania, when one talks about hygiene, one must start in the 1960s. One must remember the Arusha Declaration and the nobility of the intentions of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. And that is why many of you may not know, but at one time it was suggested that he be made a saint of the Catholic Church. And the reason was very simple. This was a man who had ideas. This was a man who had clarity of thought. This was a man who could see the future almost with the exactitude of a Jewish prophet. This was a man who had the humility, almost like the humility of the carpenter of Nazareth. This was a man who loved his country. He made mistakes, and when he made them, he realized and corrected them. That is his greatness. Is it not Saint Just who said that nobody can rule guiltlessly? This is a man who found 120 plus ethnic groups and welded them into one nation, so that Tanzanians speak with one voice. You know, if you look at Tanzania and you ask your typical Tanzanian, what was the ethnic extraction of President Kambarage Nyerere? They do not know and they do not care. If you ask Tanzanians what was the ethnic extraction of the second president of Tanzania, Mzee Ali Hassan Mwinyi, the Tanzanians do not know and they do not care because it does not matter. If you ask them, what was the ethnic extraction of the third president of Tanzania, Benjamin William Mkapa? They do not know, and it does not matter, and they do not care. And if you ask Tanzania, what was the ethnic extraction of your fourth president, Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete? They do not know, and they do not care. And if you ask them, what is the extraction of your fifth president, John Pombe Magufuli? They do not know and they do not care. They only know that he's a bulldozer. But you go to my country, Kenya, God save my country. God save my country. When you meet your typical Kenyan and you introduce yourself as John, they'll ask for the second name, not that they may know your full names, but that they may identify you with your ethnicity and pigeonhole you accordingly. When you go into that country, which is a great country in prospect, but which is being destroyed by negative ethnicity, you ask them who the first president of Kenya was, they'll tell you it was Jomo Kenyatta and he was Kikuyu, and we care. We want our Kikuyu president. And if you ask them who was the second president, they'll tell you it was Daniel Arap Moi of the Kalenjin extraction, and we cared because it was our turn to eat. And if you ask them who was the third president, they'll tell you it is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and he is a Kikuyu, and we want him to continue because we Kikuyus and we Kalenjin only feel safe when one of our own is in State House. And if you ask the opposition, and you ask the leaders from my own ethnic group, the Luo of Kenya, the Luo will tell you we have been marginalized for too long. The time has come that God must smile upon us, and our son must be the president. And if you ask the Luhyas, they'll say the same thing. That is the tragedy of gigantic proportions. I'm submitting to us that the country called Kenya needs political hygiene. I'm submitting to us that the country called Kenya needs to come to Tanzania here on a benchmarking tour, and that the President of the Republic of Kenya and all our parliamentarians should sit at the State House and be lectured by John Pombe Magufuli on the finer points of governance. Of course, Mzee Warioba will be there, and other stalwarts will be there. Salim Ahmed Salim will be there. Great Tanzanians will be there. And Nyerere will remind us, katika karne ya 21 tupande basi ya makabila ujinga na upumbavu, because it can destroy a nation. there is need for political hygiene in Kenya. Right now in Nigeria, the Igbos want to secede, and they are being warned by the Yorubas and the Northerners. There is need for political hygiene. But let me also say one of the things that relates to hygiene. Aside from negative ethnicity, there is another thing that has killed Africa and taken away political hygiene: corruption. You know, it would appear that we of the Negroid blood relate very poorly with this thing called money. Money is a useful facility that enables you to do things with ease. But if you allow money to control you and you begin to adore money and you acquire appetite for money, then you are in trouble. And I want to submit to us that Africa is the only continent in the world where upon appointment into political office or upon ascending to the political office, it's as if you have won a lottery ticket to sudden wealth. In Africa, when you are appointed a minister, even the newspapers will say if you are appointed to the Ministry of Finance, he's been appointed to the lucrative Ministry of Finance. If you are appointed to the Ministry of Agriculture or Mining, they say you've been appointed to the lucrative Ministry of Mining. But when you are appointed to the Minister of Culture, they say you've been appointed to the lean Ministry of Culture. In other words, there is a sense in which institutions in Africa appear to believe that he who gets into public office has a license to be a thief. And if you look at many African countries, many African leaders cannot account for their wealth. They have stripped their countries naked. You know, when I look at some of the great leaders of Africa, some who will not be remembered so very fondly by history, I regret. Robert Gabriel Mugabe of Zimbabwe. Nyinyi Waswahili mnasema wali wa kushiba huonekana kwenye sinia. In 1980s, when Mugabe took power, it was said of him that he had the largest number of degrees of any leader in the world, and he had degrees. It was said that he was a passionate revolutionary, and he was a passionate revolutionary. It was said that he had liberated Rhodesia, renamed Zimbabwe into a great country, and for the first 10 years he did a good job. Then something happened. Different commentators have different ways of saying. Some of them say that Sally died and he married Grace and it has never been the same again. I do not know. Some of them said that he became a prisoner of some of his comrades. I do not know. But the only thing that I know is that all the historical dividends he had accumulated have now been squandered. Why? They have been squandered because Robert Gabriel Mugabe now presides over a country where there is 90% unemployment. Robert Gabriel Mugabe now presides over a country which does not have a currency but has a central bank. This is unprecedented in the history of modern civilization. I'm submitting to us that corruption has been at the very heart of the destruction of Africa. That is why we do not have roads. That is why we do not have good hospitals. That is why we cannot feed ourselves in Kenya today. We and Ethiopia, we are importing maize from Mexico. In Liberia, they're importing chicken from Brazil. And in many countries, we cannot even feed ourselves. We do not make our own medicine. Medicine is made as generics in India. We do not even produce our own seeds to plant our fields. They are being made by Syngenta and Monsanto. We do not produce anything because of corruption. but there is a sense in which one can begin to see some hygiene. There is a sense when I arrived here in Dar es Salaam and I look at the newspapers and I see a white gentleman having flown into Tanzania in a private jet from the company called Acacia, goes into State House in Dar es Salaam and literally almost saying, mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Nimekosa sana, nimekosa sana, nimekosa sana. And President John Pombe Magufuli, as if he was a Catholic father, saying, nimekusikia mwanangu, nimekusikia mwanangu. Tutakuhurumia lakini kwa masharti. Na masharti ni ya kwamba lazima ulipe ulizozipora. I felt told that there is an African leader who can stand up to international pirates, who for 20 years have deprived Tanzania of taxes that would have gone to schools, taxes that would have gone to the health sector, taxes that would have gone to infrastructure, taxes that would have gone into agriculture. John Pombe Magufuli is a breath of fresh air. I know that there are some Tanzanians who may think that he's disrupting their agenda. John Pombe Magufuli disrupt their agenda. For if you come into a country and you find a patient suffering from cancer, you've got to subject them to chemotherapy. And when you administer chemotherapy, the hair will fall out a little. There will be some pain. That pain is necessary because there is no gain without pain. I'm not a Jewish prophet nor related to one. I'm not a member of CCM. But if John Pombe Magufuli continues on this trajectory and has a second term, in the next 10 years, Tanzania will be one of the largest economies in this country. God save John Pombe Magufuli. You know, I was reading a tweet and some American is saying, bring us John Pombe Magufuli. And I was in Kenya and I said at one time that we need to Magulify Kenya. In other words, there is a sense in which a new English word can be found, the Magufulification of Africa. In fact, I dare say that even my own paper, instead of calling it a call for hygiene in African politics, I would say the Magufulification of Africa. And I would still be right. But the whites say that one swallow does not make a summer. There are other good examples in Africa of the beginning of the introduction of political hygiene. Ian Khama in Botswana. Ian Khama in Botswana, it is said that a minister in his government went to him and said, I've been named in a scandal, Your Excellency, help me. He told him, there is nothing that I can do. The individual went to his rural home. The following day, it is reported that he had committed suicide. I'm not a sadist, nor do I intend to be one, but if there are such individuals, I want more suicides. Ian Khama is yet another breath of fresh air. Paul Kagame of Rwanda, 1994, the United Nations turned away the Rwandese within 100 days. Anything between 800,000 and 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed even in churches. Then there came a tall, lanky man, Paul Kagame, and his comrades in arms. I was there 2 days ago, and one of the best drives out of any airport in the world is to be found in Kigali, in Rwanda. And you can see, so that those who thought that Africans cannot do it, our color is innocent. The Negroid, the dark color is innocent. It is not in our DNA. No. What happens is that there are some within our ranks who are errant, who must be punished. One can go on, but even my own good friend Yoweri Kaguta Museveni found a dilapidated Uganda. And even if you say that Yoweri has now stayed a little longer, there is a sense in which history will remember him fondly. One can go on, but one must also remember that lunch must be served. And if one remembers that lunch must be served, one must also remember that there is the law of diminishing returns. And one must also remember that one must now grow to their conclusion, even as they are talking about a call for political hygiene. So I'm submitting to us this morning that Africa can be great and Africa must be great. But Africa will only be great if we Africans do that which is good and right. The great Indian nationalist Chakravarti Rajagopalachari said that when politics stumbles, the country pays. So the first thing that we must do is to introduce hygiene in our politics. And now that I'm in Tanzania, the first thing that we must do is to magulify our politics. I know that there is a Kiswahili saying, mgema kisifiwa tembo litia maji, and I'm conscious that one of the names of President Magufuli is Pombe. But I have no doubt that President Magufuli will remain on the right course. As you say here in Tanzania, atabaki kwenye njia kuu hata chepua. I'm suggesting to us that we introduce hygiene in our politics. Which means, and Mzee Warieba will remember when we were talking about the Constitution, Africans must begin looking at their Constitution, and they must be constitutions which address the African environment. You know, there was a time after the fall of the Berlin Wall when European powers from London, Paris, Madrid, and Washington told us that democracy is equals to multi-party politics. Democracy equals to this. I now hold the view that while plurality is a good thing, a constitutional review gives us an opportunity to come up with homegrown solutions. Constitutional reviews gives us an opportunity to come up with homegrown solution. Mzee Warioba, I'm happy that we did not have the Constitution when we thought we would have it. You now have had the advantage of seeing our Kenyan Constitution, which I think now has created an environment that makes governance very difficult. You, when you make a constitution, make a better constitution than we did. I'm submitting to us that we must now look at our constitution as the primary governance document in order to ensure that we create hygiene in our politics. First of all, there is a sense in which the electorate must also be educated. Democracy presupposes that the electorate is mature and the electorate knows what it wants. You know, 3 days ago, an individual from my ethnic group called me, and he told me this. This time round, we are taking it. And I said, who are we? And he told me, don't you know? I knew what he was saying, of course. And immediately I told him, never, ever appeal to my ethnic sensibilities. I did not go to school that I vote individuals because they come from my ethnic group. Tell me their agenda on health, their agenda on agriculture, so that if I vote for them, it should just be coincidental that we come from the same ethnic extraction. I'm submitting to us that even you, the electorate, when you are called upon to vote, vote right. I remember in 2007 when I attempted to seek a parliamentary seat and I had a 10-point agenda with sera zangu. The people said, sisi hatutaki sera, tunataka karo. Then I told them subsequently that how is it, and I repeat it again here, you have been given an opportunity to elect. You elect a hyena to take care of goats, and then when the goats have been eaten, you wonder why. I'm submitting to us that one of the ways is having a new constitutional dispensation. The other thing that we must do beyond the institution, beyond the constitution, is to have institutions. You know, Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, whom you now rightly refer to as Baba wa Taifa, said, you are not successful until your successor succeeds. Today, Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere is successful because his successors have succeeded. Did you not have Mzee Mwinyi? Did you not have Benjamin William Mkapa? Did you not have Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete? Did you not have John Pombe Magufuli, who have seen and said, we must protect the sitting presidents? In order to preserve the nation, sometimes memories must be selective. I remember after the civil war in Nigeria, the young Yakubu Gowon, receiving the Biafrans who had surrendered, said, brothers, I'm happy to see you. And the commentator says, at a critical point in Nigerian history, the victor did not gloat and the vanquished were not humiliated. What Pombe Magufuli is doing is right. There is no future without forgiveness. There is no future without selective memories, but we must never forget. I'm submitting to us that the only thing that survives and will introduce hygiene in African politics is institutions. Because institutions will exist beyond us. And I'm happy to say that in Tanzania, one begins to see institutions. One begins to see individuals who are smaller than institutions. Because if you are larger than institution, then you consume institution. And Mobutu Sese Seko reminded us that when he changed his name from Joseph Desire Mobutu to Mobutu Sese Seko Kukumbendu Wanzambanga. And when he died, until today, the Democratic Republic of Congo is not at ease. Beyond the institution, the other thing that we must do is that we must have men and women of integrity. These men and women of integrity are not angels. They'll have made mistakes, but they'll have learned from those mistakes. These men and women should be subjected to certain ideals. That is why Mwalimu Nyerere once again said, lazima tuwe na siasa ya maadili na miko. There must be taboos in politics, the do's and the don'ts. Tukiwa na sera huria, basi ni uhuni utatamalaki. I'm submitting to us that we must have integrity in order to inject hygiene in Kenyan, in African politics. I'm submitting to us the fourth thing, that the other thing that we must do is that we must de-ethnicize our politics. And I'm saying, it doesn't mean that you reject your being a Sukuma or a Mhaya or a Luo or a Kamba. Celebrate all those. But remember that in order to produce melodious music, you play the white of the piano and the black of the piano, and lo and behold, there is symphony, and there is harmony, and there is joy. I'm submitting to us that in order to introduce hygiene in our politics, the quality of the lives of the people must be improved. The gross national happiness index must improve, not the gross domestic product. I'm submitting to us that the misery index must go down. In other words, young Tanzanians and young Africans must have the opportunity to realize their potential. They must not go out to be humiliated. You know, today, and if there is any Chinese in the assembly, forgive me, because the Chinese are an amazing people. 30 years ago, China was a third world country. Then they made a decision, and China will never be the same again. I want to submit to you, all of you who are in this assembly, 99% of the things that you have are from China. If it is your phone, even if it is iPhone, it is assembled in China. Everything we have is from China. China has become the factory of the world. They know what they want, and they are going for it. I'm submitting to us that if we are to produce hygiene in African politics, we must know what we want. Nyerere used to say, wakati mwingine wa Afrika tunabaki tunashangaa na kuduatu. Wachina hawa. I'm submitting to us that China knows what it wants, and Africa must now ask herself, what does she want for her women? What does she want for her young men and women? And I have no doubt that we have the wherewithal to find out what we want. I'm submitting to us that we must also introduce equality and inclusivity. Our women must be given their pride of place. And I must say, you know, somebody said something with which I agreed terribly 2 days ago. Why must it be that when we are dealing with our women and our youth, we must create for them a microfinance? Why? For how long will our women be in micro enterprises? Why can't our women be involved in mega enterprises? I'm submitting to us that we must mainstream our women, because 52% of the population cannot be left in the periphery. And I'm saying that when you include everybody, when everybody is at the dinner table, then everybody will be happy, because the last time I checked, I used to think that there were two ways of being at the dinner table of civilization. And I used to say that at the dinner table of civilization, you can be present as a waiter or a diner. But 2 days ago, somebody told me, no, that you can also be the food to be eaten. So Africans, choose you now. What role you want to play at the dinner table? Do you want to be the food to be eaten? Do you want to be the waiter to be waiting upon the diner? Or you want to be the diner? Africans have been food for too long. Africans have been waiters for too long. This is the time to be diners at the dinner table of democracy. I'm submitting to us that we are not children of a lesser God. I'm saying that there is a tide in the affairs of man which, taken on a crest, leads to great fortunes. But if you miss them, it leads to great miseries. Shakespeare was right. Chinua Achebe was right. If you want and you seek, you will never fail to find. Difficulties may and indeed will exist, but it's through overcoming them that we grow stronger. And I'm submitting to us that we have the ability to do that. And to the young Africans, Chinua Achebe posed the question, where are the young suckers that will grow when the old banana dies? Are you those young suckers that will grow when the old bananas who are seated here die? Because the future of Africa is in your hands. Young Chinese are coming here, teaching us how to read Mandarin. Are we teaching them Kiswahili? Young Chinese are coming here working 7 days a week. Are you working 7 days a week? You artists, kuku can vaa raizoni, but beyond varing raizoni, the kuku must land and liberate Africa. You young Africans, why are you going to Europe and America? You young Africans, why are you celebrating Manchester United, not younger? You young Africans, why don't you have Sande Manara and Gibson Sembuli recreated rather than Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi? You young Africans, why are you celebrating Julio Iglesias? Why are you not celebrating Farida Karoli? Why are you not remembering Baraka Munshehe Mwaruka, solo in his national? I'm submitting to us that in order to have political hygiene, we must also have self-esteem. Kwa Kiswahili lazima tujiamini sisi. Self-esteem. Once we have self-esteem, that we know that we are equal and that God in his divine wisdom decided the God that I worship is a God of diversity. He looks at a white man and a white woman and he says, behold, the great creation. And he turns to the Arab, the brown Arab, and says, oh, what a good brown creation. And he turns to the slitty-eyed Chinese and the Japanese and he says, behold, what a great creation. And he turns to the Negroid and says, I perfected it here. What a perfect turn. So that when we sit at the dinner table of civilization, it is the diversity that we should look forward to. And I'm submitting to us that once we've done all that, then Africa will be great. Once we have done all that, Africa will be great and Africa can be great. But Africa will not be great on the basis of pronouncements. I know that the Africans sat in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and came with Africa Agenda 2063. But Africa will not realize Agenda 2063 when 90% of African Union budget is externally financed. He who calls the piper calls the tune. That old English saying is still true. Because, as they say in French, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they remain the same in Africa. But I'm submitting to us that this time round, they must not remain the same. So, fellow Africans, and individuals who may not be Africans but are from other civilizations and our sisters and brothers, make Africa great. This continent can be great. Make Africa's education great. Let Dar es Salaam University be great. Let Nairobi be great. Let Fura Bay in Sierra Leone be great. Let our education be great, and we will make it great. Let African agriculture be great. Let us feed ourselves. Let us have food and beef and chicken and grains made in Africa. Let African agriculture be great. Let African infrastructure be great. Let us have the new train moving from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia to Dhaka in Senegal and from Cape Town to Cairo. Let there be great infrastructure. Let us have one passport so that when I arrive at Dar es Salaam, I'm not asked for my passport. Please, let us have one. Let us have one currency so that I don't have to fly for 1 hour and I confront Tanzanian shilling. I fly for 55 minutes, I confront the Rwandese franc. I confront the Angolan kwanza. Let us have a unit of currency which is uniform. You can call it the Afro, whichever name you prefer, but let us have one currency. I'm submitting to us that we can be great. Let us have our women occupy their pride of place. Let us make the Congo, the Silicon Valley of Africa. Let us make Niger or Burkina Faso the head of nuclear power. Let us make Congo and the Kariba, the production headquarters of electricity. Let there be light in Africa. Let there be light in Africa. And I'm submitting to us that that can be achieved if we introduce hygiene in African politics and African affairs. Let us have Africa Magulified. God bless you.
Naitwa Niki wa Pili, ni msanii wa rap. Mimi nataka kufanya tu tafakuri kulingana na aliyosema profesa. Na nataka ya maswali tuyatafakari sisi, sio profesa. Cha kwanza, je, tulipelekwa ukoloni kwa sababu tulikuwa tuna low self esteem? Tulipelekwa ukoloni kwa sababu tulikuwa hatuna taasisi imara? Tulipelekwa ukoloni kwa sababu tulikuwa hatuna constitution? Nataka maswali mtafakari. Swali lingine ni kwamba ametoa historia ya viongozi wema na waovu. Je, swali ni swala la tabia ya mtu mwenyewe kuwa mlafi, kwamba kina Nyerere walikuwa na tabia nzuri na wakina Idi Amin kwa tabia mbovu, au ni swala la mfumo linamplace kiongozi kuplay role fulani ya ufisadi na mfumo wenyewe wa kifisadi? Swali lingine, tumesikia kina Nkuruma waliondolewa, kina Sankara, kina Lumumba. Kwa nini? Sio kwa sababu walikuwa kwa serikalini wanakataa kula rushwa. Waliondolewa kwa sababu walikuwa wanataka kuvunja mfumo wa kinyonyaji wa uchumi. Tusipoteze hiyo point. Kwa hiyo ukombozi wetu ni kubadilisha kiongozi, tusubiri aje kiongozi mwema, au ni kubadilisha mfumo wenyewe mzima? Tunasema tutengeneze katiba. Katiba ni mchakato wa kirasimu, ni mchakato wa tabaka gani? Tabaka gani litahozi mazungumzo ya katiba na litawakilisha interest za kina nani? Tunasema tutengeneze taasisi katika fikra zipi? Kwa sababu hiyo lugha ya taasisi inaongelewa na wakubwa World Bank wote wanaongea. Au taasisi katika lugha ya mwalimu ya kusema vijiji ndio vituo vya demokrasia, vituo vya maendeleo, au vituo vya mamlaka? Je, tatizo ni rushwa au ni mfumo mzima? Kwa mfano mimi nagombea ubunge, natafuta hela za kampeni kuwa mbunge. Chama kinagombea urais, natafuta hela za kampeni kuchukua madaraka. Hizo hela wanapata kwa nani? Wanapokuja kupata mamlaka, hiyo mikataba waenda kufanya kwa nani? Kwa hiyo kumbe huo mfumo wenyewe wa demokrasia ni tool, ni chombo cha kufanikisha huo mfumo mzima wa unyonyaji ufanye kazi. Kwa hiyo profesa ameongea vizuri sana, lakini kwangu mimi nasema ukombozi wa Afrika hautaletwa na Mesaya, Masi. Hata ukiwasoma kina Mwalimu, kina Cabral, kina Sankara, waliogopa sana hiyo dhana ya umasi ambao sisi wote tunaiabudu. Leo tumejaa kwa sababu anakuja Profesa Lumumba. Ni dhana ya umasi. Hakuna wakulima hapa wamekuja kutoa mada. Hao ndio wanaishi umaskini kila siku. Hakuna wakonda, hakuna wapiga debe. Kuna hiyo hierarchy ya kuhodhi maarifa. Sisi wasomi ndio tutaongea. Wale wanyonge tumewaacha. Kwa hiyo kwangu mimi nataka kukazia kwamba mapinduzi pekee ambayo yataikomboa Afrika kwanza ni kuvunja huo mfumo mzima wa uchumi na kubadilisha mfumo kama Mwalimu alivyotaka kubadilisha mfumo. Turudishe nguvu kwa wananchi. Tukumbuke mapinduzi ya Afrika yalipigwa na wananchi, lakini viongozi walipokuja kuyashika na kukaa kwenye mikutano waliwalagai na kuwauza wananchi. Tunatengeneza taasisi, lakini Mwalimu alisema taasisi za kidemokrasia. Kwa sababu nzako ni taasisi lakini ni chombo cha ubepari. Kwa hiyo kwangu mimi naungana na profesa kwamba tumeona viongozi wachafu, lakini mfumo unawapa fursa za kuwa wachafu. Kwa hiyo lazima tuelewe mfumo mzima unafanyaje kazi na tools zake ni zipi. Mimi naogopa sana hizo lugha za taasisi, equality, kwa sababu wakoloni ni lugha zao hizo. Katiba na kila kitu. Kwa mimi narudi kwa sababu iliyomfanya Sankara akawawa Hani wa South Africa, akawawa Lipumba kwa sababu walitaka kubadili mfumo wa kiuchumi. Na ni lazima uanze na dira kubwa kama Mwalimu, alibadilisha elimu, alibadilisha siasa na kila kitu kutengeneza mfumo mpya. Kama ambavyo wazungu walivyotoka kwenye ukabaila kwenda kwenye ubepari, waliua mfumo mzima wa ubepari. Kwa hiyo kama tunataka turudi, lazima tuue mfumo mzima wa unyonyaji na tools zake zote. Tutengeneze mfumo mpya ndio tutaweza kutoka. Lakini hizo lugha za katiba na nini, hizo ni lugha za warasimu. Asante sana.
I'm Dr. Wale Okedino, a former member of the parliament from Nigeria. And I have two questions for you. When you are making your beautiful presentation, you condemned President Mugabe for staying too long. But you are partial to Museveni and Paul Kagame. Are you trying to tell us that we can allow a little extension of office for our leaders? Or how do we do this? Thank you.
Thank you. I am Dr. Camillus Kasala of the Eastern Africa Statistical Training Center. I have followed Professor Lumumba's presentation. I would like to submit to us that this, what I'm going to say, will be the summary of his presentation, very short. There is no hygiene in African politics because of what I call the not always vicious circle. This circle begins with what is logical in African politics is not always practical. What is practical is not always right. What is right is not always ethical. What is ethical is not always desired. And what is desired takes us back to what is not always logical. Now, what is the hygiene? Mwalimu Nyerere avoided what I call temptations of 5 Ps. And I would like the young people here to listen very, very carefully, because the world today is everywhere broadcasting these 5P temptations. Please, future African leaders, the young people, avoid the first P. Avoid being the victim of the first P. The first P is power. Avoid being the victim of the second P, property. Avoid being the victim of the third P, prestige. Avoid being the victim of the fourth P, popularity. And avoid being the victim of the last P, pomposity. Waswahili wanaita mbwe mbwe. Mziepuke hizo zote. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. I believe I can answer from here. Let me start with the last question that you posed. And as I grow older, I hold the view that my answers do not necessarily represent the truth. This is my view of the issues. Opposition in modern day Africa is very reasoned. If you look at the first leaders, the whole idea of building the nation they thought could best be articulated by having one-party state. They said, we are so fragile, we are so diverse, that we must have one political party. And there is a sense in which they were right. If you look at your typical European nation, and I want you to look at Europe from Sweden, there will invariably be nation states. If you go to Sweden, they are the Swedes with a small Lapp or Sami population. And you'll find they have a small parliament for them. If you go to Norway, you'll discover they are Norwegians, almost 99%. If you go to Finland, the bulk of them are the Finns with a small Swedish population. If you go to Denmark, they are the Danes. If you go to the Netherlands, they are the Dutch. If you go to Spain, where there are multiplicity of ethnicities, then there are problems. You have a problem, you remember, during the reign of General Franco, of the Basque country, even up till now, the Catalans, the Galicians. So there is a sense in which Europe, in fact, I dare say Africa handles diversity better than Europe does. If you go to the Baltics, you find the former Yugoslavia, which has produced several countries from Yugoslavia. You have the Slovenes, the Bosnians, the Herzegovina. There is a sense the Soviet Union collapsed before our very eyes. But Africa somehow, and this was once again, many of you will remember in 1963, the Addis Ababa conference, and 1964, the Cairo conference, what is normally referred to as the Nasserite Nyerere's Nkrumahist approach, that we should not redraw African boundaries because it would create conflict. And there was a sense, therefore, that if you came to many African countries, they say, let us have one-party states. And many of the party states, the states or the parties that took over power were revolutionary parties. They were freedom-fighting parties. If you came to Kenya, Kenya African National Union, in Tanzania, TANU and Afro-Shirazi, in South Africa, African National Congress, MPLA, Frelimo, ZANU-PF, and all these parties. And they took the view, let us have one party so that everybody is under the umbrella of that party to avoid ethnic division. And one may quarrel about that particular approach, but if you look at it, there was merit in it. Then, of course, Europe persuaded us. Europe is always in the business of persuading us that you cannot have democracy when there is only one party, and that therefore we have multi-party politics. And many African countries were dragged wailing and kicking to this dinner table of multi-partyism. Nyerere was one of the cleverer ones. He did it before everybody did it and said, let us admit it. And you had NCCR, Mageuzi, Chadema, and all those parties. But the net effect is that the African politician is a very conflicted individual. Because on the one hand, he has culture and tradition defining how he behaves, but on the one hand, he also wants to behave as if he is a typical British or Dutch politician. So I say sometimes that when you look at an African politician, he suffers from split personality. And I say this in all seriousness. What the African politicians in many countries say on the platform is not what they believe in. And our own president, former President Daniel Moi, used to say it very well. After he had read the English speech, he would say, nimesema hayo nimesema, sasa wacha niseme. In other words, there are things that you say for the comfort and benefit of the so-called modern society and for Europe and America and Washington to hear, but there are things that you now say to Wazawa. And those things are different. So multi-party politics, because when you introduce multi-party politics, the assumption is that there are clear ideological differences. If you go to Europe and America and you talk about the Tories, there are ways in which they believe that government must be run in this way. You go to the United States of America, there are a sense in which the Republicans have a way in which they think government should be run. If you go to different countries, but if you come to Tanzania, what is it that Chadema wants to do that is different from CCM? What is it that NCCR Mageuzi wants to do that is different from CCM? If you look at them, the difference is possibly 1%. If you go to Kenya, where we have 63 political parties, if you ask these individuals, what do you want to do? They'll tell you we hold the view. They'll not tell you in so many words. I'm the one who normally says it on national television. They hold the view that because the present administration is an administration that has brought together the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins, the next combination should now have the Luos and the Luhyas and the Kambas and a little Maasai.
Welcome to Royal Valley Estate. a gated community with over 300 housing units. The houses come in 3-bedroom detached, 3-bedroom semi-detached, 4-bedroom detached with a 2-bedroom outhouse.
Royal Valley Estate Limited was incorporated in 2008 to help in reducing the deficit in the national housing backlog and also to provide housing for people with a unique taste. Royal Valley Estate Limited is duly registered and is owned by reputable Ghanaians.
The estate comes complete with 24-hour security, estate management and sanitation services.
Royal Valley Estate Limited has got valid land title certificate, which means that there's no litigation on our properties. Royal Valley Estate Limited is master planned, which makes provision for church, recreational area, shopping center, and a clinic. Royal Valley Estate Limited has made generous provision for plot sizes. There's a 70 by 100 feet plot size for our 3-bedroom detached house and a 50 by 70 feet plot size for our 3-bedroom semi-detached houses.
Construction is currently underway with several houses completed. Royal Valley Estate is built with high-quality construction materials. This ensures our houses have high-quality finishing. Each house has ceramic floor tiles, panelette ceilings, aluminium sliding windows with burglar-proof. The bathrooms are tiled and have chrome plumbing. The kitchen is fitted with cabinets.
Our doors have the external metal security doors and internal panel doors. With all this, we've provided a 5-year warranty for our houses that we develop.
Water supply is guaranteed with supply from Ghana Water Company and a borehole as additional water source. Electricity is supplied by a dedicated transformer. All drains in the estate are covered and the roads tarred. We offer flexible payment options and arrange mortgages with leading mortgage providers in Ghana. The estate is located in Bawaleshi off the Accra-Dodowa Road.
You are making the right decision by choosing Royal Valley Estate Limited as the place to live in.
The Luos and the Luhias and the Kambas and a little Maasai, so that essentially the election we'll have in the month of August on the 8th, as I've said rather harshly and bluntly, is not an election on issues. It is an ethnic census to determine whether a combination of Kikuyus and Kalenjins is larger than that of Luos, Luhias, and Kambas, or vice versa. And if you look at how they have divided it, they have actually said it. If you look at our typical Kenyan politician, he says, we the Luos, it is our turn now. We the Luhias, it is our turn now. So that when we talk about opposition, running an African country is not very easy. If you go to Angola, it is the Ovambo and the Ovimbundu. If you go to South Africa, it's the same thing. You've got to ensure that Zuma is the president because you've got to settle the spirits of the Zulu. If you go to Nigeria, right now the Igbo think they're excluded. And if General Buhari is unwell, the talk is already there. Will Osinbajo take over, or will it be a northerner? Rather premature, if you ask me. So what is opposition? If I was the president of a country, this is what I would do. Recognizing that African countries are fragile, I would have monthly meetings with all opposition leaders. Monthly. Because some of these opposition leaders, the truth be told, what they want is to be heard. They want to have an opportunity to contribute to the entire national enterprise. And they have good ideas, some of them. Ingawa wengine ni wababaishaji tu. But in many ways, they have good ideas. And I think that there is a sense, if you look at an article that has been written by Mwalimu Nyerere a while ago, it says, if you read more, you become more enlightened. There is a sense in which that is what African leaders forget to do. Mandela tried to do it when he was the president. One day, when he went out, he appointed Gacha Buthelezi to be the president. And Gacha, I think, was very satisfied during those few days. So one of the things that we must realize, opposition and government, is that we are working and moving in the same direction. So my prescription, whether it's taken or not, is another debate. Ensure that these individuals are involved. Have quarterly meetings with all of them. Tell them, this is how we tell us how to run government. In fact, in many African countries, what I would do is to ask the opposition leader, I'm putting together my government. Do you have any problem with being appointed into my cabinet to serve so that these beautiful ideas, we mix mine with yours and we govern Tanzania? That would be my approach. And I think in that way, the opposition then becomes responsible. It becomes the loyal, responsible opposition. Otherwise, the opposition then exists to oppose everything and to propose nothing. And you can kill that by involvement. So that is my answer to that question. The second question is about foundation. Let me give an example. I was listening to a debate by the former head of UNIDO, who is a Sierra Leonean and is contesting to the president. And I said to a friend of mine, if this man has these ideas and I was Sierra Leone, I would vote him. He said, Africa can realize our potential. And this idea that Africa has had conflict is misguided. And he gave examples. Vietnam was at war. Cambodia was at war. Laos was at war. The two Koreas were at war in 1953. Japan was bombed to the ground in 1945. Yet they have revived. They went back to the foundation that you talked about. In other words, we know the true north, tunadira. And Mwalimu used to say in Kiswahili, siri ya maendeleo ni watu, ardhi na siasa safi. And siasa safi means that you have the maadili. Mzee has already, in fact, Mzee, the next time I'm called, I'm going to Uganda and I'm going to use the 5 P's and I'll say I heard them from you. Because in truth, if you look at those 5 P's, that is the problem. Umejua ukizungumzia hili swala la mamlaka, Mwafrika, kiongozi Mwafrika kwanza katika hafla kama hii, kiongozi asili wa Kiafrika ukimwalika saa 4 anakuja saa 5. Na yuko tu katika mkahawa anapiga simu, je, wametulia hapo? Wametulia kabisa. Basi wakisha tulia anaambiwa wametulia, sasa anakuja na mbwembwe na vingora. Na mikia wanyama pia wanatingisha hivi. They think that that is what will make them important. That is power ambayo unaizungumzia. Na swala hili la kuhodhi na kumiliki mali, unapata mtu ana vyumba vingi tu. Na umejua kilichoko katika kuhodhi mali huku ni kama kunywa maji ya chumvi. Kadri unavyokunywa ndivyo unavyotaka zaidi. Haisitiri, mtu ana nyumba nyingi tu. 40 katika Dar es Salaam, nilisoma hivi karibuni, mmoja wa TAKUKURU alipatikana na nyumba nyingi tu. Mtu kama huyo, ni kitu kipi anakitaka huyo? Mtu ana magari 20, amemwandika mtu kila asubuhi anaviwasha tu. Hata havitumii. Sio ni upamu huo? Ni ulafi tu, si uroho, si ulafi, ni upamu, ni unguruwe huo. Na ndiye anaizungumzia. Na swala la tatu ambayo mzee amelizungumzia ni swala hili kwa Kiingereza anakiita prestige. Ndio maana Mwalimu alisema siku za awali, tuna mzee wa Rioba atakumbuka, sote tuwe ndugu. Wakati alipofariki mzee Nyerere, sasa Watanzania wabunge wakasema, si Wakenya wanajiita waheshimiwa, sasa na sisi pia tuitwe waheshimiwa. Hata mtu akigombea tu, punde tu anapotangaza anagombea, sasa anasema lazima mimi mheshimiwa. na akijitambulisha anasema mimi ni mheshimiwa fulani. Nani wewe? Sisi ndio tunakutambua kama mheshimiwa. Na jambo la tano ulilolizungumzia ni swala la umaarufu. Mtu atafanya kila kitu, atawaita wakina mama wanengwaji, wanengwe, atawaita vijana, atawakodi vijana vibarua na magenge la vibarua waje wacheze dansi na waite majina ya kiajabu ajabu. Hilo ni jambo ambalo linamfanya Mwafrika anakuwa na uungu fulani. Na hilo ni jambo ambalo unaona katika hivi alipojingatua kutoka mamlakani waziri mkuu wa Uingereza, siku ya pili anaabiri gari. Hivi sasa ukija katika mataifa mengi tu, nyinyi njooni Kenya muone, tuna watu ambao tunawaita magavana 47. Nikiana nyumbani kwetu barabara hakuna magari, unamuona mtu na bendera na magari 10. Nasema sasa nani anakutisha huku nyumbani kwenu? Mbwembwe na ving'ora tu. Unaona mtu amelindwa na askari 50 na zaidi. Sasa nasema ikiwa wewe umechaguliwa na wananchi, kwa nini unawaogopa wao? Unalindwa kutoka kwa wanyama gani hawa? Wanyama waliokuchagua. Na vitu kama hivyo ndivyo vinavyochangia mdororo wa kisiasa na mdororo wa kiuchumi. Kwa kuwa kukidhi vitu kama hivyo inatugharimu sisi walipaji ushuru. Na hivyo ndivyo vitu. Mnakumbuka mzee wa Riobo, utakumbuka siku zile za awali mwalimu akakataa, akasema katika ikulu ni kubwa mno, nipeni nyumba ndogo tu Msasani. Mtu ana nyumba iliyo na vyumba 20 kwa mwaka, hata hajatembelea moja, lakini ni jambo ambalo akiwa kwenye baa na simua anasema umeliona jengo langu la kifahari. Si ni ujinga tu. Kwa hivyo kuna umuhimu wa viongozi kujinasua kutoka katika minyororo ya utumwa, jinsi alivyosema 3 Ps mzee, na ni jambo ambalo ni la busara isiyo na kifani. Nakubaliana na msanii mwenzangu ya kwamba lazima tuhoji swala hili la mfumo. Umejua sisi sote watu ambao ni tishio na hatari katika Afrika ni sisi tulioenda shuleni. Sisi kwa kwanza fikra zetu ni za kufugwa, na zimefugwa katika misingi ya kigeni. Na Waafrika fikra zetu zinafugwa na jamii mbalimbali. Ukiwa tulitawaliwa na Waingereza, kwanza kabisa walikuja wakatubadilisha majina. Umejua jambo la kwanza, hata Mungu alipokuwa anataka kubadilisha, ukiwa Abraham anakuita Abraham, ukiwa Sarai anakuita Sara. Sasa sisi kwanza kabisa, ukiwa Mkristo, wewe ukiwa jina lako ni Nyakulinga, wanakuambia lazima uwe John, ndio jina lako la Kikristo. Ukisha kuwa John, ukienda shuleni unaambiwa Kihaya ni lugha duni, sasa elewa Kiingereza. Na mifumo sasa ukiangalia katika taasisi nyingi tu, kinachofanyika ni ya kwamba ni fikra hizo za kufugwa. Wewe tuangalie, niligusia swala hili la Wachina. Kwa nini Wachina, sijui kama katika chuo kikuu cha Dar es Salaam kuna taasisi ya Confucius. Wana maono ya ajabu hawa. Katika kila chuo cha Afrika kuna taasisi ya Confucius. Kwa kuwa kile ambacho wanataka kufanya ni kutupa fikra za Kichina. Na hivi sasa sisi ambao tumeenda shuleni, ukimuuliza mwanako sasa ni lugha gani unataka kusoma, kwanza ilikuwa ni Kiingereza, Kifaransa na Kijerumani, sasa ni Kichina. Na katika siku za usoni sote tutakuwa Wachina wadogo wadogo. Hata tukienda kubatizwa utasikia mtu anasema mimi ni Deng Xiaoping Nyakulinga. Umejua swala hili nalizungumzia kwa utani. Kumbukeni ya kwamba Wachina walikuwa na sera fulani ya kusema ya kwamba Wachina hawazai mtoto kuzidi moja. Sasa wamebadilisha, wanasema wanaweza wakawa na mtoto wa pili. Na nilisema ya kwamba huyu mtoto wa pili anaandaliwa. Huyo mtoto wa pili ndiye atakayefanya katika nchi za nje ikiwemo Afrika. Mimi nawaenzi sana watu hao kwa kuwa wanatambua ni kitu kipi wanakitaka na wanakifanyia kazi. Sisi wa Afrika, jambo la kwanza nasema na kusisitiza ya kwamba tunahitaji mikutano minne kule Addis Ababa ya viongozi wote, tuna taasisi wakilishi wote, na katika mkutano wa kwanza swala mama iwe ni kitu kipi kibaya. Tukishalichokoza hoja hiyo na kuidadisi, tuwe katika mkutano wa pili tuseme baada ya kutambua kitu kibaya tutalitatua kwa namna gani, na mkutano wa tatu tutautatua kwa njia gani, na wa nne kwa muda gani. Tukifanya hivyo, kwanza tutatambua ya kwamba kuna makabila mengi. Tukisema ya kwamba Waafrika tuungane, hatusemi ya kwamba tuwe na mila na desturi zetu tuzitupe nje. Tunasema la hash, Wayoruba wawe Wayoruba tu, Wahaya wawe Wahaya tu, Wakongo na wawe Wakongo tu, lakini tukumbuke ya kwamba vitu tunavyovitaka kama Waafrika ni sawa. Mwafrika anataka chakula kizuri tu. Si Mwalimu ndiye akasema ya kwamba vijana ni kuwa na siha bora, malezi bora na bongo kali. Kwa hiyo jambo la kwanza tunataka kula vizuri. Tunataka shule nzuri. Tunataka miundo msingi na miundo mbinu nzuri tu. Tunataka tuwe na mahospitali na mazahanati nzuri. Hivyo ndivyo vitu ambavyo tunavitaka. Tunataka tuwe na ajira kwa vijana wetu, ili kijana wa Kitanzania akipata fursa katika nchi ya Liberia iwe ni rahisi kwenda huko. Umejua katika nchi za Ulaya kilichoko ni ya kwamba vitu vya msingi haviwasumbui. Kijana kwa kadri, kijana ambaye amelelewa katika nchi ya Norway akisema ya kwamba kula ni ya kwamba alikula sosiji 2 tu. Lakini Mwafrika akikuambia sijala kwa muda, huyo mtu anasononeka, hajara hata maji hana. Na ninakubali ya kwamba vitu hivyo vitashughulikiwa tukiwa na taasisi ambazo zinalenga mila na desturi. Mwalimu Nyerere kasema ya kwamba wacha Waingereza na Waamerika waende katika sayari za mbali, sisi wa Tanzania na Waafrika tufikishe maji ya bomba kwenye miji. Wacha wao wawe na ndege za kiajabu ajabu, sisi tuwe na chakula mezani. Hivyo ndivyo ambavyo tunavihitaji hata na katiba zetu hizi tunazozizungumzia. Tuangalie na kubaliana nawe ya kwamba lazima tuwaulize wananchi washirikishwe, na inawezekana hivyo, na tukikutambua hivyo itakuwa ni jambo nzuri tu. Mwenzetu nitamjibu kwa lugha ya Kiingereza kwa kuwa anatoka sehemu za Nigeria. I agree with you. If you listen to me very carefully, it means that I'm conflicted. There was a time when I thought, and I'm still not clear whether my thoughts are clear on this point, that term limits are a good thing. I think no matter how good a dancer you are, you must leave the stage. No matter how good a dancer you are, you must leave the stage. And I think, and Mzee Wariobe, I'll come back to you because you are there. When Mwalimu wanted to leave office, there was no shortage of people telling, Mzee utatuacha mayatima. And Mwalimu was clear that this is the time to leave. You must know when to leave. In fact, the best time to leave is when people say they want you to stay. And I'm conflicted in the case of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and Paul Kagame for historical reasons. Rwanda has come out of a very difficult history. And for that reason, the institution, the personal presence of Kagame has been very useful. But I now hold the view, and I said it in Rwanda the other day, that this should be the last term of Paul Kagame, so that he can even have a puppet, so that people get used. The mere fact that people see another face is good enough. It demystifies power. And I think that that is a good thing. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, with whom I have had a conversation and raised the same question, I hold the view also that this should be his last term. In other words, there is a sense in which they have overstayed a little. They have overstayed, there is no doubt. The reason why I have a problem with President Mugabe is because he has stayed for too long and institutions have suffered. In the case of Uganda and Tanzania, there are economies they are worth talking about. There is no economy in Zimbabwe. You go there. It's the first country in the world that does not know which currency to use. At one time, they were using the yuan. At one time, they were using the rand. At another time, they were using a bond. At another time, they were using the American dollar. President Mugabe was a great man, an intellectual, but he stayed for too long. No matter how good you are, if you stay for too long, you spoil it. A good dancer must know when to leave the stage. That is why I'm passionate. And it also gives me an opportunity to say something about General Buhari, about political hygiene. General Buhari inherited a very difficult country. And I want to say, the day Nigeria wakes up, Africa will never be the same again. Nigeria, with a population of nearly 200 million, 300 million, Nigerians cannot even agree on a census. They don't want a census because they don't want to discover that the Fulani are more than the Yoruba or the Yoruba more than the Igbo. They think that that discovery is a dangerous thing. So Nigeria must make a decision, and I think that President Buhari is unfortunate that he's unwell. But look at the short time that he has been there. Nigeria, the budget of Nigeria is going to be financed by the money which was looted by individuals. You can see the fight that is coming out there, but it's not going to be easy. In fact, he said that if you threaten, kumbukeni ya kwamba mafisadi ni watu wa ajabu. They have the patience of vulture, these corrupt individuals. They wait for you. So Nigeria is beginning to move in the right direction, but once again, you remember last week, the Oduduwa Republic, which is the Yoruba-speaking states, gave a warning that if by October the Igbo still continue talking about Biafra, they shall be expelled from all Yoruba states. The northern states also said the same thing. That is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for disaster. Ethnicity. And I'm using this occasion to overextend my answer by also giving South Sudan, John Garang Dimabior. Right now, if you go to Nairobi in Kenya, all, if not all, but a good number of cabinet ministers in Sudan live in Nairobi, and their children are either in Nairobi, Addis Ababa, or Kampala, or Europe. South Sudan is a hunting ground where they work on Fridays, steal money, and invest elsewhere. That is not leadership. Now people are fighting the Nuer and the Dinka in the 21st century. One is saying that it is possible if we do what we did. Suppose President Kiir were to have weekly meetings with Vice President Riek Machar. They would resolve all these things because the people are always helpless. I can't agree with you more on that particular. And I think the last question is swala hili la kuhodhi, maarifa, and national ethos. I think there is not a single leader in Africa who spoke about a national ethic. There is an example that I've given. It happened to me when I used to come to Tanzania every other time with Jukwaa la Katiba. So I used to come every week. So one day I'm at the airport in Dar es Salaam and I have my little bag, and I wanted to have it on as a carry-on bag. And they told me, no, you've got to check it in. So I went to a young man who was selling padlocks. Akaniambia, wewe Mtanzania? Kasema, mimi ni Mkenya bana. Unarudi nyumbani? Kasema, narudi nyumbani lakini nahitaji kufuli kwa kuwa wameniambia lazima niweke kwenye nanio ya mzigo. Niambia, unaenda Nairobi? Sema, nunua kufuli mbili, wezi hao. And you know, I keep on telling that because the attitude of the average Tanzanian about Kenya ni ya kwamba ni mwizi. And I asked Tanzanians, Kenyans, what do you think about Tanzanians? They say they are polite and too slow. But it's better to be polite and too slow rather than to be a mwizi. So that is the perception that we created, and it was created because Nyerere had ethos. One day I'm in Tanzania, and a young girl, I asked for a soda, Coca-Cola. Sema dada naomba unipe Coca-Cola. She came back 10 minutes later with Sprite. Kamwambia na sasa dada siniliomba Coca-Cola. Sema si soda ni soda tu. I just laughed and took the soda. And the moral of my story is that when you come to hospitality, Kenya is number one. A hotel industry, we do very well. But I was so amazed by the politeness with which, if it was said, the Kenyan would say, we kunywa soda wewe. The difference is Nyerere created a national ethic and ethos. Your typical Kenya will say, nataka maji. Mtanzania asema, ndugu naomba maji. Sometimes we joke that even the Tanzanian policeman, when we want to arrest you, say, naomba nikutie nguvuni. How can you omba tutia mtu nguvuni? Unamtia nguvuni. And I'm saying this in jest. Mwalimu Nyerere was talking about ethics. And today, when you look at Azimio la Arusha and the 10 points, is that not what everybody is talking about now? All these TAKUKURU, all these anti-corruption authorities, all these integrities, we have gone back to Azimio la Arusha. And I'm saying that there are things there that we can look at and begin to inform our leadership. And lastly, I want to talk to young Africans. I see young Africans here. Professor Mlama, the VC, the DVC, Mzee Warioba have done their bit. This is a relay race. The question is, and I know that there are Christians here, if you look at the Bible, there is a man called Simon. When he had been told that Christ has been born, he said, now I can die, because I know Christ has been born. Can this generation say that of you? That now they can die? Can we leave Tanzania in your hands? Will it be safe? Or you will want to make it the 52nd state of the United States? That is the question. And even those of you who are from the Muslims, many Muslims here will know the great hadith writings of Abu Huraira. When the Prophet had been poisoned and he was dying, the comfort of the Prophet is that he had his Sahabas. You who are here, are these your Sahabas? Will they sell us to Europe and America? The question is yours. Choose you now. The Chinese have chosen. They are coming here. And they will be here. There is a phone that I acquired recently called the Techno. In the next 5 years, out of every 10 phones, 9 will be Techno. China knows what it wants. We are 1.3 billion. Do we know what we want? Sisi wa Afrika. Au in the words of Nyerere, tunabaki kushangana kudua tu. I know it can't be done. When I listen to you, who is an artist, and I know you are either below 30 or below 35, I was refreshed. The former president of Sierra Leone, whom I did not like for many things, but I liked him for one thing, he said that in Africa, a journalist with a pen in his hand is like a warrior with an AK-47. He can use it to protect or to destroy. Africa is a fragile continent. What Europe and America can withstand, having gone through different decades of civilization and civil wars, sometimes the multi-ethnic African communities cannot survive. The artists in Africa must be a lot more careful. You must use the tweets a lot more carefully. You must use the Facebook a lot more carefully. You must use all those mediums a lot more carefully. Because in recent history, we have seen the radio being used to cause genocide in Rwanda. So you, the artist, remember what Shakespeare said. Oh, you giant, oh, you lion, you have the powers of a giant, but use it carefully. Because he who is powerful must know how to use the power. So you African artists, you must choose what to say and what not to say. In other words, without compromising your freedom, you must choose what to say. Just like when you are reporting a death, when you are telling me that my father is dead, you don't come and say, mzee wako, yule hayuko tena, amekufa. No, you come to me and say it differently. And I conclude with this example. There are two ways, those of you who are Christians, of passing an information. There is the way of John the Baptist. John the Baptist was shouting to Herodias, oh, you adulterer! And ultimately he was arrested, and Salome asked for his head, and that is the end of the story. But there was another prophet in the Bible called Nathan. He went to David and told David, oh, King David, there is a man in your kingdom who is very poor. He has only 2 goats. And there is another one with a lot of goats. But this one with a lot of goats he has taken from the man who has only 1. And David said, who is this man that he may be punished? And Nathan said, King, that man is you. You must make a decision on how to say things. The only young man whom I would have loved, please, to ask a question is that young man who raised his hand throughout and was never recognized. Yes.
Okay, karibu.
Thank you so much, Professor. My name is Joram Kumbi. I come from AOLF, Africa Youth Leadership Forum. And I've been in Kenya attending the National Prayer Breakfast 4th time, meeting the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. So my question is to you, what have made you special? And what moves you forward as a professor? Because I want to become like you. You have said life is a relay race, handling the baton to the next generation. And if you allow me, because you are the true son of Africa, I have a gift for you. A map of Africa. And thank you for painting our hearts green. I have a gift for you, Professor, if you allow me to give you.
Please. I didn't know he had a gift for me, so let it not be thought that...
Before I go back, I want you to bless me. I want you to bless me, sir. Thank you.
I was very troubled because his hand was up throughout. And this is what I keep on telling younger people, is this, that this is generational. I started hearing of Mzee Warioba when he was a judge, he was a prime minister, many things, and I kind of liked him even before I met him. And there is a sense in which there are certain ideals that he stood for. In fact, there were 4 Tanzanians that I loved. Of course, Mwalimu was on a different scale. I loved him in a different way. But Edward Sokoine, I loved. Mzee Warioba and Salim Ahmed Salim. And of course now, I've become a mkereketo wa John Pombe Magufuli. But I can't agree with you more that one of the questions that I now ask when I sit on interview panels, I ask this question deliberately, and I'm normally allowed to ask, have you ever made a mistake? Many interviewees actually say no. And when they say no, I don't proceed. And when we remain to retire, I say, don't pick that one. Because my next question is, if you've made a mistake, what mistake was it? Then you tell me. Then the third question, what did you learn from it? Once you told me that you made a mistake, this is what you learned from it, invariably, you get to know that that was the best candidate. And I tell younger people, when you look at others who are older than you, borrow some of my good habits, not the bad ones, and strive to be better than me 100 times, and you will be great and greater. And you do what is right, and remember what Mzee said, the 5 Ps. In fact, I dare say, Mzee, I'm going to print this thing and place them in my office so that I may remember at all times never to be a victim of power, never to be enticed by property, never to be victimized by prestige, never to be enticed by popularity, and never to be subdued by pomposity. God bless you.